Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the May 21st, 2024 meeting of the Southborough Select Board. And the first item on the agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item that's not on the posted agenda, and it's intended as a opportunity to receive comments, but not a back and forth or a deliberation. We try to keep it to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience here that wishes to offer public comment? Anyone in the online audience? Okay, so seeing none. The first item on our agenda is the appointment of two student police officers, Aaron Sparks and Cole Trainer. And for this, I'm going to turn it over to our police chief, Ryan Newell.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I am here to request the board's appointment of Mr. Aaron Sparks and Mr. Cole Trainer to the position of student officers within the Southborough Police Department. We advertised these open positions once they became available after the transfers of Officer Jim Gallagher to the Milford Police Department and Detective Keith Nichols to the Hopedale Police Department. We interviewed multiple candidates for the positions, and both Mr. Sparks and Mr. Trainer did an outstanding job on their interviews with us. They have both successfully successfully passed their background investigations, their psychologicals, and their physical evaluations. Mr. Sparks here is a resident of Worcester, Mass. And is currently working as a laborer with main drilling and blasting. He attained his bachelor's degree from Queen's University, Belfast in Ireland, and recently became an official U.S. citizen with the hopes of becoming a police officer in our town. He is also a certified EMT. Mr. Trainer is a resident of Westborough, Massachusetts, and is currently working as an area manager for boating in Boston GSI. He has also completed a 5-month internship with the Westborough Police Department. He attained his bachelor's degree from Framingham State University and graduated from the 20th CMCPA 372-hour Reserve Intermittent Academy in 2020. He is also a certified lifeguard and has qualified in firearms through the MPTC. We are excited to have both Mr. Sparks and Mr. Trainer as part of our team, and with your expected appointments tonight, we look forward to having them enrolled together in the earliest police academy available, which should be coming up very soon. Their academy training will take approximately 23 weeks, and then they'll be on an additional 12-week FTO program within the department upon their graduation. These additions to our department roster will bring our number of sworn officers to 20, and with one additional position to fill. And with that, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sparks or Mr. Trainer?
I don't have any questions, but just wanted to welcome you here, and it's nice to see all the, I assume, family support. So we have one officer from Westborough and one from Northern Ireland, right? Okay. And, I think you'll find it's a great department with, a great group of officers and two good leaders in Chief Newell and Lieutenant McCarthy. And it's, a smaller town, so you get to know people. And I just think it's always nice at our meetings to be introduced to kind of the next generation of police officers. So thank you very much, and I look forward to supporting your appointment.
So I agree with everything Andrew said. So whose family is with who? So
We're with Cole.
okay, all right. And I know we've got, there you go, okay. All right, that's great. So I'm glad to see the families here. So welcome, and I'm glad you're down to one. That's great. We're going in the right direction. So good, all right.
I have nothing to add except to echo comments from my colleagues here. Great to have new officers on board. And again, I think you'll find it's a very great place to work and a great town, a lot of good people here. So we hope you'll have a long and successful career in the police department here. Thank you.
Yes, welcome, and I think you'll find working with Chief Newell is really great.
Welcome to Southborough, and hope you make a long career here. I am particularly impressed by Mr. Trainer's skill with a canoe, having been a canoeing instructor myself. So Welcome to Southborough.
We do have a couple of reservoirs, so you might get good practice in.
Yes. All right, so would you have anything you'd like to add, or? Okay, all right. That's usually the response when I say that, but,
That's good, though, because I tell people that I've rarely gotten in trouble for something I did not say, so.
yeah. Okay, so I move that the select board appoint as new student police officers Aaron Sparks and Cole Trainer.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Can you get your picture? You got your pictures? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chief. Should we ask him to, does he want to speak to, well, just the part-time dispatchers? What's that? Do you want to, why don't we just, Chief? Chief? Actually, if you have a second, we have on our consent agenda the appointment of the part-time police dispatchers. Yeah, do you want to just kind of, just like a 1 minute, explanation of kind of like where we stand on that, and just a quick intro on that?
Yep. We interviewed a bunch of candidates. We narrowed it down to 2.
Yep.
Great candidates, have shown interest in possibly doing full-time if needed.
Okay.
If that does arise. And they're on the consent agenda tonight.
Yep.
We hope to get them started on their training immediately, and which would be covered under the State 911 grant that we have.
Okay.
And one's a Northborough resident, and one is, I believe, Shrewsbury resident. But 2 great people for the position.
Okay.
So are you doing this because of the increase in the budget at 7-1, or this is totally separate?
Yeah, we had talked about this. We wanted to build our reserve just because we have them there. I mean, they're not being paid all the time. They come in and help us fill shifts if needed. Right now, we have 5 full-time dispatchers, but if one of them goes out sick or has some sort of medical emergency, we wanted to have a reserve pool, which we ran into a problem the last time because we had one of our part-timers is like the director of the Worcester Rec Center, so he's never available, and then we only had 2 after that, and then one of them got a full-time job. So we just wanted to have this reserve pool as candidates to pull in if we needed to.
So this fits into your 6/30/24 budget?
It could morph into filling these 2 new positions.
Okay,
Yes.
but for now, you're going to slide them into your 6/30/24 budget just as to fill in versus to double up?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Sorry to put you on the spot on that.
I don't mind at all.
Okay.
You did good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lieutenant McCarthy. Good night.
Okay, we have a 7 o'clock poll hearing, but it's 6:38. So with that, I think we can move to the presentation from Beta Group. Does that make sense? Okay, and you, one of you could just pull up another chair if you could have, or one Bill's from the podium and you jump.
Yes,
Absolutely.
please.
Yep. Are there 2 chairs there?
Yes. Yeah, you can't see
I can't see it from
No,
there.
you can't see them at all. It looks like there's no chairs.
Okay. So, Bill, you want me to turn it over to you to kind of set the
Sure,
stage for
sure. I'll
this?
just give a brief intro. Tonight, we're here with our consultants from Beta Engineering, Tony Garrow and Peter Daddaria. They've largely prepared the pavement management plan that we've contracted for with them. The idea behind this is to identify the condition of the roads within the town of Southborough, give them a score, and then come up with different methodologies as to how we prioritize which roads need work. So there's several different approaches. They'll get into that a little bit. What I want to underline now, and I'll probably underline again, is this is for pavement only. This does not talk about underground utilities. It doesn't talk about drainage. It doesn't talk about anything other than what we can see. So it's the frosting on the cake. You don't know what's in the cake. So with that, I'll turn it over to Beta.
And this, the funds for this came from a community compact grant?
Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
This was, sorry. This was originally a community compact grant, and then I believe we did, Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, did add some additional ARPA money into this to do the sidewalk component of it as well. So this is the final version of all of those
Just the
pieces.
pavement, no,
Oh,
not
just
the
pavement?
sidewalk. This is
Okay,
just pavement.
just pavement.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Are we on here? You can.
yes.
Good, okay. All right, well, thank you for having us in this evening. My name's Anthony Garrow. I'm a Senior Vice President with Beta. And here with me tonight is Peter D'Addaria. He served as the project manager on the project. So Peter and I have worked together now for almost 15 years on developing pavement management programs for communities across New England. We work in a wide variety of communities, similar to Southborough, ranging from suburban to urban to rural. Definitely not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to pavement management. But in terms of the project that we've been working on in Southborough, we started back in the fall of 2022, and we completed inspections in December of 2022. Are we running through the PowerPoint? Will that be
Yeah,
on the screen?
that's the actual
Yep.
report, I think.
But the actual
Yeah.
power,
Yeah. You just ask and it'll move.
okay, oh, nice,
right.
okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. No.
That's the report.
Okay, we'll get there. But while we're waiting for this to load, this is something where, in my day job or just talking to people in town, this is something I am excited about to describe, your product. And this is a way where we can use some technology, start to make some more objective.
Yeah, and the
decisions
technology
about-
is really, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
Peter and I have seen it from, old school boots on the ground technology to a wide range of different automated technologies that are now available. So it's definitely becoming more and more interesting. We have to adapt to the technologies as they become available and improve, because our goal is to provide the best technology to the community that we're working with. I can start while she's going through.
Yeah, so you're talking about the project began in December.
So
too?
December, yes. So the inspections were completed in December 2022. But, in terms, we have a quick just overview, benefits of pavement management. First and foremost, your roadway infrastructure, very important to the community. It's important to maintain your roads at an acceptable level of service. The investment you make in maintaining your roads on an annual basis, whether it's Chapter 90 funding, ARPA funding, or other funding made available to you, it's important that you have a plan in place. And what this program that we've developed, it's provided the data, empirical data. There's a science behind it, so it's nothing that's subjective in nature, but it's going to allow you to plan ahead through the database that's developed. And ideally, you're looking at, maximizing the budget or minimizing your costs. So that's something that we've worked a lot on over the last year or so in developing the program. Next slide, please. So the overall goals and objectives. We can't talk about pavement management without showing the standard federal highway deterioration curve, and that's the graphic. So everything that we do, from conducting the pavement condition assessment to then understanding the road conditions, and then evaluating the repairs and strategies, unit prices. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this predictive curve. So the general data sets that we've created follow pavement deterioration. The program that Peter's really worked hard on over the years has a built-in ability to look at forecasting pavement conditions over time. And we built a model that's really based on the New England conditions that we see. A lot of the freeze-thaw cycles come into play that really impact the condition of pavement and ultimately the performance that we see on pavement across New England. But really, the ability to plan ahead and develop data that's useful to the community and CIP tool there that we're highlighting. So capital improvement planning is really the key to all the pavement management programs that we develop, is developing a plan, looking at your needs for costs and budgets, and then where you're going to be, where you are today, and where you will be, say, in 3, 5, or even 10 years, for that matter. Next slide. A typical project for us really consists of 5 steps. The first step in developing the program is establishing the GIS mapping for the project. Everything that we do on asset management projects such as this, it's all GIS-centric. So it all revolves around the mapping, such as the map that you see over there to the right. But that's very critical. Peter spends a lot of time in configuring the database. We look at the roadway profile, so that's your roadways that are Chapter 90 or town-accepted roads. So that's the first thing that we look at. We want to make sure that your Chapter 90 roster is current. If it's not current, then we're going to let you know, and then you can apply through the GeoDot to update your road mileage. The next step in the process is to assess the roadways. This is really the most time-consuming aspect of it, is assessing the roads, qualifying the roads from a condition standpoint, and then we also have a very thorough QA/QC program before we provide any deliverables to the town. Then you get into step 3, which is analyzing the information, and that's where we're looking at the different repair strategies that are out there, and we'll get into that further in the presentation. And then forecasting. If today, for instance, your roadway network score is a 50, but it's not, it's better than that, I'll keep you, you'll see what it is coming up. But
What's the max?
100. So every road is scored 0 to 100. So the idea is to be able to analyze and look forward and forecast based on different budget scenarios. And Pete's he's an expert at that. He does that almost every day. He's running different forecasts for communities. Capital planning and prioritization, that's the tools that we provide in the program that allow you to develop a prioritized list of projects using the data. Of course, it's not as simple as that. Like Bill pointed out, right now we're really focused on the condition of the roads, curb to curb, but you have your underground utilities, you have sidewalks, you have curb ramps, you have other things that you do need to consider when you're prioritizing your roads across the town. And then ultimately, you want to take credit for all the work you're doing. So you want to update the database each year as the roadways are completed, whether indicate in the system the type of improvement that you've made, take credit for that work, and then provide an updated report on an annual basis. Next slide. So the system itself, it's all, as I mentioned, it's a geographic information system or GIS-centric approach. The platform that we've deployed to the town, and I believe Bill has been using the program, so that's a web-based program. So that allows you to see all the different road scores across the community, see it in a GIS type environment, so it allows you to zoom, pan, just like you're in Google Maps, for instance. It provides you with a nice user-friendly tool. And then it also provides you a mechanism to also view other elements that were collected. So as part of the data collection process, we also collected imagery. So within the platform, you're able to see different photography every 10 to 20 feet. Great deal of detail. Next slide, please. So the process, so this is that important field data collection process. And for Southborough, we utilized a LiDAR-based approach. So here in the image, you can see that's a beta vehicle that we use to collect the data. On top of the vehicle, affixed to it is a LiDAR sensor. So that LiDAR device is collecting basically a point cloud within a 50-foot radius of the vehicle. Also, at the same time, we're also collecting imagery at 10 to 20-foot intervals, like I mentioned previously. And then ultimately, through the LiDAR and the imagery, a industry standard 0 to 100 condition score is established for each roadway section. So again, a great deal of detail here. This provides now a more repeatable and consistent approach rather than subjective. We used to do a manual approach where you're looking at it visually. If Pete were to look at a road and I would look at a road, we never had the same score. So maybe we're close, but it would be different. So this provides you with a consistent score across the community. And again, inspections were completed in 2022.
So the software does the score?
It's through an automated method, an AI machine learning approach.
Which is a lot more consistent than people driving around doing a visual inspection. Different inspectors have different conclusions, so it is at least consistent internally. Now, there may be some adjustments that you apply overall, but great quality data from that source.
You know, and the other benefits too of the LiDAR, it also gives you the point cloud, so you can extract other assets from that point cloud. So we are working with the vendor, and we're hopeful that that's going to continue to improve over time. Like signs, for instance, could be extracted.
And
from
hydrants and
solid
catch basins and those kind of
pavement
things.
marking.
Yep, yep. And ultimately, we had a lot of conversation about trees in town, so the structure can adapt to include trees, should we want to go that way next.
We're seeing a lot of interest in tree inventories or urban forestry programs. There's a lot of grants out there now. We're working in a community. We just started. It's a big undertaking when you
Sure.
get into the trees.
Yep. Yep.
But it's interesting. It's something new for us.
Yep.
But I think, and we're excited about it, and I think there's going to be a lot more activity in that area. So what this graphic is showing, this is outlined how we can analyze the data. So starting at the top or line number 1, those are all the individual points that are collected as part of the data collection process. So each of those points, for instance, on Main Street 01, Main Street 02, and Main Street 03, have a different score. We're able to then assign a score from those individual points to each individual section of road. And then from that, we can come up with a composite score for the entire road. So it's neat in terms of how we can analyze the road, either from the road as a whole, composite, 0 to 100 score, at the segment level, or then at the point level. And the thing that's nice about the point level in this case is that you could use it to identify and isolate locations that could be an isolated repair or a spot repair.
Yeah, and I guess my rough math says that if you're evaluating it every 10 or 20 feet, that we've got a database now that has something like 300,000 road segments for town.
There's a lot of I don't know how many points, do you know?
And that's pretty granular detail to have that data, so very helpful.
Okay, so just to be clear, the 1, 2, and 3 were based on intersections, right?
So the top one, so you have number 2 is intersection to intersection, and that's typically how we would organize the data, would be segment-based.
So our report's basically, it's kind of outlined by number 2, so it's kind of a, block-to-block level of data, and then 3 is the overall road as a whole, so when you take all those block-to-block segments and average them together, we do, organize our reports that way as
Is
well.
this really our Main Street? This is real?
No, this is just an example graphic, sorry about that, this is an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get to the last one, the actual overall score for Main Street, how do you compute that?
So it's a weighted average for each segment of road. So in some cases, we may have a road, it could be 10 segments of road. You could have varying degrees of scores. Typically, they're relatively close, but you could have scores that could range from, say, a 50 to a 70, and then you're going to come up with a weighted average. So that's going to help Bill when he's doing his planning. So now, typically, when you do a road improvement, you're going to do the same type of repair to a road as a whole, for the most part.
And the other thing too is it's weighted by square yards, not
Segment,
just by length,
yeah.
so width.
Surface area, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
So segments 1, 2, and 3 could be wider, longer sections than sections, say, 4 through 10. And so we do a weighted average that way, so it's by the surface area of the road.
If you had a skewed road where you had part of it in really good shape and part of it in horrible shape, the average score might not give you what you need to do with that road,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's why we split it out,
But
so
you-
you can dial in the
Yeah,
detail.
yeah, you got the ability to break the road up into different segments if that's going on. So you could have an algorithm that says if there's a variety of more than 20% or something along the road, then you go back and break it up into unique segments.
Have that algorithm?
Yeah, and you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see that,
Oh,
in
yeah.
if you look at the report,
Yeah,
there's a report, we call it the parent-child report. So you have the parent record and then all the individual segments that follow that. And you'll be able to see in that report where you could have varying degrees of scores, which are usually they're going to, and I'm going to get into the repair band shortly, but you'll see that typically they're going to be in the same band or maybe pivot to a band that's adjacent to it. So typically, they're close.
But with this underlying data, Bill could go back and redefine how you define those segments differently, depending on what he sees or how he wants to manage the process.
And if you have an extreme difference, sometimes we will actually, let's say Main Street, if there's a significant difference in scoring for some reason, we could make it Main Street A and Main Street B, for instance. So we've done that in some towns. Next slide, please. So the roadway profile for the community. So this project included evaluating 72 and a half miles of roadway. That's centerline miles of road. And that is equivalent to what the town now has for Chapter 90 as well. But the community as a whole consists of almost 109 miles of road. So that includes private, state, and other roadways that make up the roadway network. But the 72.48, those are the roadways that were evaluated by us as part of the project.
It's interesting data because it's curious to know, what has not been accepted and why, and what do we think about the private roads, et cetera, there to clean up the inventory a little bit. Over the years, I'm sure we haven't paid a lot of attention to that, so another good piece of data.
That private number looks low, but I'm just saying it looks low.
That's your road, actually.
Well, I'm looking at my road and going, okay, that's a big chunk of it, there's gotta be more than this one.
So the town accepted and the private, and Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes those blend in together. The unaccepted and the private tend to blend in a little bit. It depends on how DOT classifies them in their file. But the town unaccepted roads, the little over 9 miles, you could look at those roads and consider bringing those on. That's something that you could do.
Well, some of those are subdivisions that, as I understand it from Mr. Cundiff, maybe were not paved all that well to start with, and we wind up with a liability there, so it'd be good to sort of go through there and try to understand what's lurking out there and how we might want to manage. But again, you got the data now that you can do a lot of things with, which is great.
And that's a very good point. That's the communities that have asked us to review the town unaccepted roads. We have a different scoring mechanism for that, because we're looking at all the detail, not just the condition
Right.
of the road. You've got to look at the whole right-of-way, see what you're dealing with before you make a decision.
And the
on it.
underlayment, too. You need to know what the base looks like under there,
Exactly.
so,
It wasn't an engineered road.
yeah.
What year was it constructed?
yeah.
What's the 4.4 unknown?
That's Al's driveway.
It comes from the state file, it could be like cemetery roads, schools, like municipal type roads like that. So it's, again, that's the coding that comes from DOT, so.
So that 108.9 jives with the DOT records as far as Southborough is
For
concerned?
the townwide
Yeah.
data set, yes.
Yeah, the file we use for the GIS comes directly from the state,
Mhm.
so we have the classifications by the jurisdiction, as you see here.
It may not be perfect, but it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
So we can
Yeah,
go from there.
they're not quite exact, but they're usually pretty close. Like on the biggest thing that we look at would be the town-accepted mileage versus the Chapter 90 mileage. We want to make sure that you're maximizing what you can get from the state on the Chapter 90.
And that 72.5 jives with that? Sorry, no, corresponds to what
With the state.
Chapter 90 says exactly?
Well, I think it was close. I think it was within probably a mile,
Yeah, it's probably within half a mile.
So if it's more than a mile, then we want to dig into that and find out what the disparities are. I think we just did a project for a community, and I want to say it was, how many was that? That was 5 miles?
They have 5 miles.
5 miles we added?
Yeah.
5 miles at about $6,000 a mile, so they added about $35,000 to their annual allotment. So that, to me, I paid for the project at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So now we're through understanding the road miles that the community is responsible for. We've evaluated the roads. All the roads have now been scored 0 to 100. And you can see here on the chart on the right, where you're starting from 0 being a road that's in very poor condition to a 100 being a road that essentially would have been paved recently. We break the information up just to simplify it a bit, where you're going to have roads that are 0 to 50 would be considered poor, roads that are 50 to 80 would be fair, and and then roads from 80 to 100 would be considered in good condition. There's a variety of different repair strategies that you see on the left-hand side. So starting with, from the top, a roadway that was just recently paved, say within the last 3 or 4 years, really essentially there's no action required at this time. Now roads, keep in mind, are deteriorating. And the program accounts for that deterioration. So a roadway that's a 100 today, next year it would be a 98, for instance. Typically it's dropping about 2 points per year. So then from no maintenance required, you're going to get into routine maintenance, and it's good practice to do crack sealing, consider fog sealing appropriate roadways, preventative maintenance, that could be chip seal, microsurfacing, bonded wearing courses. There's a wide range of preventative maintenance or preservation type treatments that we see in use across New England. From there, you get into minor rehabilitation, which is your standard typical mill and overlay, shim and overlay, hot in place recycling, and then major rehab is when you're getting into roads that are in poor condition, and that's when the costs now, as you go down the curve, this is when your costs are starting to go up. So the idea is really to try to catch your roadways before they fall into a more expensive proposition, and that's where the whole science behind the pavement management program will help the community with that.
Can you tell us what the
I'm sorry.
fog seal is? I'm just curious.
It's a treatment that you could put on the surface of the roadway, and the fog seal, really the purpose of the fog seal, you might get oxidation. Typically you're seeing after say 3 or 4 years, you're going to see that the asphalt starts to discolored. So that's the right time. That's when you want to do fog seal. It's not, you don't want to necessarily do fog seal too far down the curve. You want to use fog seal to help preserve the roadway, so you catch it in that, say, first 3 to 6 years is usually the ideal time for fog sealing.
And that's relatively low cost, and it's basically replacing the oils and the original asphalt, and really extends the life pretty well, as I understand.
And there's a wide range of fog seals that are out there. We're just saying fog seal, but there's a wide variety of different fog seals that we're now seeing. And they're all a little bit different in terms of how they work and how far down the curve you want to go with those.
So annually, we want to probably develop a plan where we have 100% of our pavement maintenance budget. We want to allocate a certain amount towards each of those categories annually. So it's not just all going to full depth, reclamation or, reconstruction.
And this model can help determine where it's most effective to allocate
correct.
those dollars in each one of those segments, where do you get the most bang for the buck
That's right.
in each one of those categories. And ultimately, I think the bottom line is that we eventually, I think, will wind up spending a lot more money on preventative maintenance than we have historically, which, again, overall, there's a lot of data that says it saves us a lot of money if we do that smartly.
Yeah, ideally you have a balance plan ultimately, where you're touching on different repairs, not just one specific repair each year.
Yep.
So here's an example, right here, just right outside here. So here's an example. So you see RSR, so that means road surface rating. So that's that 0 to 100 score. So Common Street scored a 98. Next slide.
It's sort of 98, but there's a dramatic curb drop-off there that would be wonderful to fix, as a matter of fact.
It's not on the roads.
That takes us down to about 38, I think. That's not your problem, though.
And then this next photo is Calendar Drive, RSR 73. And now you can start to see where you have cracking. There's been some crack sealing done here, which is good. But you can see now the difference between a 98 and a 73. The next slide. I love this photo. Here you can see a score of a 42 on Wood Street. And this is where you're seeing textbook alligator cracking, longitudinal cracking, patching. Potholes are starting to develop, routing, a lot of issues with this road. It's an old country road. Probably not a great base there, I would assume. But this is a very good example of a roadway that, is below 50. You're going to need to do something here. But there's something to build, like something like this is where we could talk about some alternative type repairs.
So Wood Street's a good example. You know, the score does not take into account the volume of traffic or usage on the road. So, you know, bear that in mind. Even though a road may score poorly, it may not rise to the level of seeing the volume of traffic that would warrant increasing the suitability at this point. So you kind of have to take them on a case-by-case basis.
So that's where the subjective part will come in, because clearly this road is not traveled
Correct.
very big.
But you could use the model to weight relative importance or some surrogate for that as a function of traffic load. And traffic load, automobiles versus trucks, for example, makes a difference. So with the data, you could use the model to figure out the impact of those kind of things, I assume. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is actually, further on in the presentation, we're going to talk about cost benefit value, and that does take into account beyond just the 0 to 100 score.
Yep.
It also accounts for the volume of traffic or the function that road has in the community.
Right.
Very important. I think it's an important analysis to
Yep.
run.
Good.
Would you excuse me just for a minute? It's past 7. Do we want to delay the,
You want me to?
Well,
speed up?
sure, so,
No, this
We
is
just-
really something we've been waiting for
yeah,
a long time.
what I suggest is maybe we
Interrupt.
we'll get through the slides, and then we'll just see where we are. See, we have a posted poll hearing in National Grid at 7 PM, but I think that we'd be perfectly, I mean, I don't want to interrupt the
Yeah.
flow of this.
Let's keep
So,
going, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
This next slide really just breaks everything down. So we've talked about the conditions of the roads, we've talked about the different categories of grouping the roads, and here we're breaking it down by the type of repair. So again, the 0 to 50 roads that are in poor condition are in a major rehab category. 50 to 70 would be in a minor rehab category. 70 to 80 in preventative maintenance, like we're just talking about preservation. Routine maintenance, 80 to 92. And then roads that were recently improved are in that deferred maintenance where there's nothing required at this time, but the model will have that deduct on an annual basis. So ultimately, if you are 92, you're going to move into a routine maintenance category. Each of the different repair strategies also has a unit cost associated with them. So these are average costs. So we want to be relatively conservative in our planning. So those costs are then applied based on the square yardage, like Peter mentioned. Every single segment of road has a square yardage. So the cost per square yard is applied to that measurement. And then ultimately, we have estimated costs for each repair across the network. So based on that exercise, that planning calculation, you're at about $14.3 million in backlog. But like Bill pointed out, that is just strictly curb to curb. That does not include drainage. It doesn't include utilities or sidewalks or curb ramps, so strictly pavement. And then your score, overall network score is a 72.4. So that's your overall network score right now. So on that 0 to 100 range, your network score is right kind of in line with what we've been seeing. I think it's almost smack in the middle, Pete, right? I think we see typically 68 to say 74.
Yeah, for Massachusetts, 72, 73 is, I'd say, the average.
Now, we do see communities in the high 50s, low, mid 50s, and we do have some that are in the 80s. So you're pretty much right in the middle.
One thing to mention is on the 72.4, that does include the 2023 road work that was completed. So the model was updated at the end of last year.
So this is current where we are today.
Yep.
As of December of 2023, yes.
Yeah,
So when you complete your paving this year, Bill will let us know, and we'll go in and update the program to reflect those improvements.
Yeah, I saw data from Arlington, I think it was, that they did this about 10 years ago. Started out in the 60s for their overall ranking, and over about 10 years, they've gotten into the low 80s with a reasonably conservative spend, but spending it in the right places to maximize the impact of the dollars they have. So it's not an instant fix, but it certainly is a lot better focus than sort of eyeballing it and trying to figure out what's going on in a pretty complex physical system out there. A lot of moving parts, and no human could sort that out clearly and consistently in their head, certainly.
I would say we have one of the communities we work with in Connecticut, a pretty rural community, about 112 miles. They Not a ton of funding there, but, you know, they focused, you know, heavily on that preventative maintenance, routine maintenance, and they've gotten their score up to 86 now, so, and.
Over
What is it now?
What time period?
86. And,
70 to 86.
How-
they've
how
been
long?
About 14, 14 years now.
14 years, so
So,
slow and steady.
Yeah,
I-
They've been consistent.
yeah.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the basic value proposition is that you're trying to slow the rate of decay, where, you know, if we do what we've been doing in the past, maybe it takes 20 years to go from 100 to 50. And now we want to extend that from 20 years to some other number. Can you give me sort of a weighting factor of how that works? Did that make sense?
You mean as far as the life extension?
Yeah,
So there is a life extension, I didn't mention that.
okay.
That's a very good question. So associated with each repair, there's a life extension. So if you're going to do, for example, a major rehab or like a reclamation of a roadway, that is going to give you a life extension of, say, 15 to 20 years. Where if you're going to do a preservation technique, that might only give you, say, 5 to 10 years of life extension. So there's definitely life extension associated with it, but there's also, it's a relative cost too. So preservation is, say, half the price of a major
Yeah,
rehab.
I get it. I'm just trying to sort of calibrate it. This all makes perfect sense. I'm just trying to calibrate benefits and costs.
But if you do a reclamation for, let's say, terrible shape to 20 years, then with the appropriate preventative maintenance, you could potentially extend that 20-year life to 30, 40, 50 years.
Right, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, and that's what these communities are doing, that were in, say, that mid to 60, now that is in, say, close to an 80. And that's the approach that they've taken.
But are you assuming that on the major rehab, it's going to be a reclamation project? That's what you're recommending
Not
doing?
necessarily, there's other there's other types of treatments that you.
Well, you
can consider.
costed it, so you had to assume something,
We
right?
assume that the $48 per square yard, we assume that would be a reclamation type project. There's different types of reclamation activities that could be considered that would vary in price.
Okay.
So you can slice it more finely, but you don't really get as much bang for the buck for more and more progressive slicing. This is pretty good, probably close enough, I would think, to be
Yeah,
pretty effective.
this is a planning tool. Let's not lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not exact. This is a planning tool. It's to help us identify which roads rise to the top to get the construction work completed on them, which makes the most financial sense. And again, so there's a variety of factors. This is a living document. Next year, we're going to have a different PCI than we have this year. So, you know, we've got to just periodically update it, keep on top of it, and manage it.
Who's going to do that updating?
Yeah, I was
I
gonna,
assume either Beta or another consultant. They don't want to hear that, but yeah.
so like, these were inspections were in, oh, okay, fall of 2023? Because I thought we were talking about the data was taken in.
December of '22.
Yeah,
It was last updated through 2023, but the inspections were in 2022.
okay.
So the baseline data was 2022.
So to do this, you do it on an annual,
I've heard 3 years is
3
reasonable.
years?
Yes.
Okay,
So every 3 years, you come back and ride around the car again and re-survey everything?
Inspect all the
But
roadways.
in between, like each year, in between those 2 years, we want to update the road as.
What we're doing, what we-
paved and improved,
okay.
so that we can just get an idea of what the score is.
So basically, you know, as we do these major rehabs, and there are a lot of them out there, we want to make sure that we are moving to this different maintenance scheme.
Toward that, yeah.
Well, no, if we invest $48 a square foot, I want to know that 2 to 3 years, that this new maintenance scheme, which is going to protect that asset, is in place, you know, and that for the existing assets, I'm going to call them assets because that's what they are, you know, this is a maintenance scheme, and we need to make sure that we put this in place so that we're following this scheme, which is different than the scheme I think that we have followed in the past, you know. Well, you know, yeah,
It hasn't been, well, let's just face it, we haven't done anything like this. It really was
Right.
whatever rose to the top of a manual list.
Worst first.
Yeah.
right, but yeah, we were operating to failure.
I think this is great. Where does the data on the scoring related to volume of traffic and weight of traffic?
It's not there.
We can, are we all set with this slide? Any more questions? Go to the next slide, please. So this is, again, GIS-centric approach. So we can spatially view the information, color code the different conditions of the roads. It's a nice visual. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a lot of different types of thematic maps that you could generate. This is just an example of one, and also one over there as well. Next slide, please. So this is the system that, that Bill has been using. We deployed this, we call it Manage My Roads. So this is a web-based application. So it allows you to interact with the roadways at the segment level, and also at that point interval that we talked about earlier. If you go to the next slide. So that this allows you can see all those individual points. So those individual points also contain an image connected to it. So you have I think, like you said, hundreds of thousands of points potentially across the network.
Yeah, it's probably 100,000 points. Yeah, and each of those points, like you said, there's a photo tag to it.
So it's really, it's a nice tool to have to view the information, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it gives you an idea. So you can see on the right where we're maintaining the history of your program, and you can see that there was no work done in 2022. There was some work in 2021, and then you did quite a bit of work in 2023. So now this is all becoming a part of the pavement management program in the database, but also to view it visually.
We had a major state project, a TIP project, that cannibalized our local road money for a few years. We had to use a piece of that to finish that project. So that's why you didn't see much done in 21 and 20 either, probably.
So ultimately, like the town that Pete mentioned, we want to stack up, 15 years of all the road work that you've done over time, and that gives the ability to also track the performance that you're seeing on particular repairs across the community.
So could you go back a slide, Vanessa? So this software, the thing that I'm excited about is they're not quite there yet, but they are continuing to work on improving the software. They will reach a point where I can go in and manually manipulate some data points in here and enter road improvement cost information. So, it's a good tool for my department to have also, so I can, weigh the cost of different projects in different areas. It helps us manage better the funding that we have, so.
So now we're through the data analysis in terms of assigning treatments, different repair costs, and the backlog that was just presented. And now you're getting into forecast modeling. So this is a 5-year forecast model. So just to explain it, on the left-hand side, there's a pie chart, and that's showing the different types of repairs that are feeding the model. Again, so each of those repairs has a cost per square yard associated with it, and also life years added associated with it. So the model itself here, it's starting at that 72.4 RSR score, so that's your current score. And then from there, Pete ran a model that was based on different funding scenarios that you see on the right. So starting on the bottom, the 428,000, that's your current Chapter 90 allotment right now. So if you were to only spend Chapter 90, and again, this does not include any other repairs other than curb-to-curb improvements, then you can see that you're losing ground from that 72.4 over time. So in order to maintain, you're at about approximately $150,000 per year in order to maintain your current score of 72.4. To improve, now you're looking at $1 million to $1.25 million per year over 5 years to see some continual improvement in your overall score. There's a lot of different variables that go into the modeling, one of which the pie chart, that controls a lot of it because now it's looking at how much you're spending per roadway. we've run different scenarios where we'll do a balanced program versus a preservation program, or more of a heavy rehab, worst first program, that type of thing. So we can run really any type of model that you'd like us to.
And you can flip it around a little bit also and say that if we want to spend X million dollars on roads this year, where would that go? And then Bill can look at that and say, does that seem to make sense? And no, I don't think that's quite right. Let's tweak it a little bit so you can play modeling games there to figure out, get insights in terms of how the network works, which is really complicated. I mean, ultimately, it's linear algebra to optimize that kind of stuff that's hard to do in your head. So with that model, Bill can learn things about how the roads interact with one another, how the maintenance programs interact, and then get much smarter about spending that money in ways that really have more effect, which is great.
Right, and the model accounts for inflation, so there's
Right.
a lot of, it's very, if you
Yep.
look behind the scenes at the
Yep.
model, it's very complex in terms of the calculation.
And you can play games with treatments too. I counted like 12 different treatments on your list there. And for example, if you have a vendor who's really good at one kind of treatment, you can run a model that says, okay, if we want to focus on this treatment, where should we spend that money to be most effective? If you get a great deal this year from a contract from somebody who does seal coating or whatever it might be there, so.
And Pete does a
So-
good job of the modeling. One thing that he's done, which I really like, is we'll do like an incremental model. And that's where you might show an influx of money. What would it mean if we got an influx of money over the first 2 years? Where would that get us?
Yep.
And then you start the model again, and then you could show just chapter 90, for instance. So there's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice the data and run the model.
Unfortunately, we see more outfluxes than influxes, but
So I believe we've got the ability to issue a bond and use the Chapter 90 money and the annual warrant
Allocation.
money to repay the bond, so therefore not affect your budget. So I believe we can do that to try to front-load some of this. But as far as the funding scenarios, that 428 is our basic Chapter 90 money. We've also got another 450 that we allocate from town budget. And the fair share that's going to Southborough right now is like 225 or so. So when you put those three together, we're already at the scenario $4 million is what we've got right now for roads. So that's actually, this is much more encouraging than I thought it was going to be. Now, I realize, I heard your caveat, this doesn't include the utilities and what's going on underneath. So I get that, that's probably not
but
insignificant.
at least we're not way behind.
Well, not only not way behind, the $14 million is, when you look at what we've got coming in, and let that be the debt service, it's doable.
So for the utilities there, are you talking about like,
Water.
yeah, okay, you take up the road and then, because I saw this when, I saw a street, I think it's the reclaim and, okay, you grind up the whole street and then you have the catch basins, you gotta do some work around there.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so what I'm talking about with regard to utilities, and we have several examples of this, as you know, Willow Street, Northborough Road.
Yeah.
And Central Street has an issue now.
Yeah.
John Street has a settlement issue. These corrugated metal pipes are at an age where they're starting to fail, okay? And it depends on the dynamic of the water. John Street sees a constant flow. There's no bottom to that pipe whatsoever. So we have to replace the drainage system.
Okay,
So it's underground
so
drainage.
there's, yeah, but,
I think you're being a tad optimistic, to be blunt, given that these other projects are bigger than you think, just a pipe under a road, but it's six figures.
Right.
And that's for one pipe for
So
one
who's
road.
being optimistic? The $14 million is optimistic?
Well, I think, I'm sort of looking at this and saying, we've got to understand the other stuff as well, and that is bigger than a breadbasket.
I think that's what we're hearing
Yeah,
here, is that
yeah.
this is
And
one
then,
piece.
by the way, this is fabulous. I really like what
Like I
you're
said, this
doing.
is a planning tool, that's all
Right,
this
right.
is. This is not something we're going to focus so much on that dollar amount, because, I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think it's good for a planning tool and head us in a correct direction, and then take the projects that rise to the surface one at a time. We'll do our assessment on the infrastructure, see what needs to get done, and then we'll go forward.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to begin to think about this in two pieces, which is there is a road maintenance piece and there is an infrastructure. The stuff under the ground.
Right.
A lot of towns have a stormwater enterprise fund, which advisory has been spending a lot of time on recently to recommend. And the beauty, that would assess that to everybody.
And Westboro just instituted
We'd have a
that.
bigger denominator if we did that, so it's something we probably
Yeah,
need to think
well,
about.
That's true,
as
that
part of
we would
this.
have, because we can assess the schools.
Yeah, you look at total impervious surface, and it includes everybody.
Okay, yeah,
Westboro-
so
Westboro just,
carry on, I'm enjoying this immensely.
Yes.
And it's always nice too, when you're able to take advantage of the utilities paying for the paving too. So that's something, I'll use Taunton as an example. They've done a lot of improvements there through their SRF program. So they're doing, say, sewer work, but then they're doing a curb-to-curb mill and pave once that work is done. So that's just frosting on the cake from Chapter 90, fair share, local appropriation. They're also getting that help from the utilities. I think that's important.
Okay.
So this slide here, I think this is what we've been leading to. You've had a couple of questions along the way in terms of how the data can be prioritized. So these are different factors that come into play. And the first one we start with is called the cost benefit value, or CBV. And that's a calculation. It looks at the roadway condition, so that 0 to 100 score is one factor. It looks at the volume of traffic, or the roadway functional classification. So you have arterial roadways, collector roadways, local roads, cul-de-sacs, dead ends. So arterial roadways are going to have more influence on the prioritization, because it carries more volume of traffic, has more importance to the community. Then you have the cost of the repair, so you're looking at a cost of a major repair versus the cost of a preservation repair. So it could range from $8 up to $48, for instance. So that comes into play when you're running the cost benefit. And also the life improvement or extension, like we talked about earlier. So that comes into play. So there's more benefit if you're improving a roadway and you're adding more years to it. So that's also part of the equation. But the other factors, like we just talked about, you have your subsurface utilities, your gas, water, sewer, drainage, all of that also needs to be considered. So before you go ahead and do an improvement, understand what's underground, what is the age of the pipe, what's going on with your lead services, things like that. There's a lot of different things to consider along the way. That's why it's a planning tool. It sets the stage. The roadway condition and the estimated cost sets the stage, but this needs to be considered. Sidewalks and curb ramps are not cheap. Installing curb ramps now, following the new requirement, they're going up. We're seeing them go probably double or triple in cost for installing a curb ramp. So the CBV, there is a report within the report that was provided that does have that calculation, and prior shows all the roads and how they align.
and we now have an inventory of curb ramps out of this process.
We do,
Which
yeah.
is,
And that's coming up next. I can
Helpful,
move into that slide. So, actually, no, I'm sorry. So the next slide, this is just a summary of the road work from 2023. So a little over 5 miles of road improvements were made, mill and pave, 1.5 inch mill and pave, 3.3 miles. There was some new construction, a little under a mile, and then reclaim and pave 4 inches, 1.82, total again, 5.19. This information's all available in the database, so this lays out all the improvements that were made in 2023. The same report will be available once 2024 is completed, and 2025 and so forth. So now you'll be able to track your improvements, when they were done, and then how they're ultimately performing over time.
Do we track vendors?
We can add those in.
Yeah,
If
'cause,
you
I mean-
provide it, we can input it. Yeah.
Track the vendors who actually did the work?
Yeah.
who did what?
It's data for 10 years from now when you say,
We-
this
we
vendor's roads,
We shouldn't have hired that guy.
yeah, well, you can have a good list and a bad list.
Right.
The people who, just like at home, you hire the guys you know do good work.
Except you always learn too late, I'm afraid.
So we talked about sidewalks, curb ramps just a few minutes ago. So we did do a curb ramp inventory, and it consisted of about 312 curb ramps. So those are on the town-accepted roadways. So a small inventory right now, which is nice. Some of the communities we work with have over 1,000 or 2,000 curb ramps that they're responsible for, and so that can add up quick in terms of the improvements. But based on the inventory that we did, 142 were in good condition, 136 in fair, and then you had 34 that were poor. So those are all spatially located on a map. You know how they relate to your roadways, and so when you can plan accordingly, if you do indeed want to update or upgrade these curb ramps as part of a paving project. Next slide, we also did an assessment of sidewalks for condition. So you have asphalt, brick, small volume of brick, and concrete across the network. Total of 22.5 miles of sidewalk in the community. Then you can see the breakdown condition. So you can see concrete, most of the concretes, although a small mileage, the majority of those are in good condition. And then your asphalt, where you're going to have more in that fair condition. But just again, small network of sidewalks, small quantity of curb ramps, so which is nice from a management standpoint and what you're required to do from a regulation standpoint. You have, your inventory is minimal at this point. But the idea would be to connect this data with your paving data so you can do a collaborative project when the time comes.
But we'd like to have a lot more sidewalks, curb cuts, so we're working on that too.
We're working on it.
So this deals with what we have.
Right.
Yeah. It didn't outline, there wasn't a master plan for sidewalks and curb ramps. It was just an inventory of what you have, and everything was mapped within the GIS. And now ultimately, now you've made this investment, so we've evaluated all the roads, we've analyzed the information, we've provided some planning information and GIS maps, and now you're maintaining the program. So again, update the data as improvements are made. So that's typically done every year at the end of the paving season. Go in and do that, take credit for the work that was completed. You're going to see your scores go up or potentially go down. It really depends on how much work you did and where your roads are falling on the curve. Monitor and update costs. That's very important right now. We're seeing, we did see an uptick in cost, post-COVID. Unfortunately, cost per ton for a hot mix asphalt did go up. So that could, reduce the amount of work that you can accomplish. Again, reassess the roadways every 3 to 4 years. And then system maintenance, that's really the most important thing. And using the program as a tool, not just at the end of the year, but, as you might get calls from the public, it's nice to go into the system and you'll be able to see, what the condition of that roadway is and actually drill into a photo if you are getting a call from the general public.
So if you did nothing in a year, your score is going to go down because every road's going to go down a
It's
little
going
bit.
to deteriorate, absolutely, yep.
Even if you spend $450,000 here,
Well, I said if you spend zero,
Oh, yeah.
right? But if you spend 450,
it'll still go down.
I don't know.
So the idea would be to, keep good roads good. You want to extend the life expectancy of the roads, try to catch them at the appropriate time on the curve, so that way you can really maximize the budget that the community has at the end of the day, and that's the tool that you have.
Can you go back to the pie chart where you showed an example of how you would mix in the different things you could do?
Forecast model, that would be the one with the,
The pie chart over here, and it showed
right there.
there. Is this what you recommend, or is this something you could do?
This is an example, this is an example of a forecast that we ran. Now, that 50% that we're showing minor rehab, that could be modified to, say, 30%, and you could, you could change the distribution of each of the repairs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can analyze it. This is just one of the examples that we ran.
Okay, so the colors over here on the chart don't correspond to this. It's just a coincidence. So
No,
they respond to
don't.
this down here.
If you did it ideally, would you get to a point where you set a schedule so that the maps, the roads that are red, the worst ones, you would set a target, okay, within X number of years, we could do a program where there almost wouldn't be any in that category, right? And then you would then lock in a system where at least the worst would just be in that yellow, so you wouldn't have to deal with it as urgently. You could do something like that, right?
So if you go back to the backlog slide,
Yeah.
where it showed the 14 million, And granted, that's just an estimated cost of improvement. Back a couple more clicks to the table, this one. So in terms of the modeling, you could use the percentages that you see here. Those could be used and applied in the model. I think when Pete runs these models, there's really not a one-size-fits-all. It really depends on the goals.
I think the
of
thing
the
to consider
community.
too is the roads that are in the minor rehab now, like, they're gonna eventually become red. and
Yeah.
Everything's done.
Okay,
So really what we're trying to promote is kind of that balanced approach. I think what's worked well in a lot of towns is where they're trying to pick off roads at the bottom of the curve, but we're going for a balanced approach where they're keeping their good roads good and taking some funding and keeping their good roads good. And then picking off the bottom of the curve, and that's slowly progressing that network score to go up and come in like so.
Yeah,
Like I
but-
said, it's not something that can really happen overnight, but it's kind of things
over
that slow
time.
and steady.
Mhm.
You know, if you can gain half a point to a point each year, you're moving in the right
Yeah.
direction.
But Andrew, I would think that there's a possibility that you might wind up with roads that are red here, for example, that are very lightly traveled, so it's not a big deal if they stay red indefinitely, as a matter of fact, 'cause it only takes 3 cars a day. So you
Sure.
want to spend your money on places that are higher priority from a traffic
Yeah.
or public safety or.
Like
that kind-
wood.
Yeah.
Wood was a good
So,
example.
so it's important that everyone realize and convey to the public, I think, that there's a logic here so that when residents see us doing some minor improvement on a road that's not that bad, when their road is horrible, there's a logic here as to how we're getting to that. We have to preserve what we have, but also tackle the bigger projects each
Exactly.
year.
Yep. And I've actually had some of that conversation with residents who seem to be very sympathetic to a more structured, organized approach, because the impression has been that it's sort of random.
Right.
And I think this will go a long way toward making people comfortable that we're doing a good job spending the money wisely.
all right.
Any additional questions?
I mean, I think the way you put it, Bill, is a good way. This is a planning tool, right? Okay.
So you're done with us for the moment, and Bill's got access to the website.
Right, and we're gonna continue to help Bill, we'll update it, provide support as needed. Pete's just a phone call away or a visit to
So-
Bill's office.
They're already helping me on a project.
So one quick question, so obviously, we got to maintain this every year. What is it going to cost us to maintain this system? Not the roads, the system.
Well, it depends on how far up.
No,
you
no,
go.
no, just to maintain the GIS base,
Oh, sure.
the stuff we've been seeing here that we're so wowed with.
So I'm not sure how much access we have to that My Roads program, and if that is tied to our contract. But I would imagine I'm going to use that tool until the next time they come out and do an assessment, and then we reconfigure our priorities.
Right.
So I would imagine we have access to that for some period of time.
You do, and as we make improvements, you'll have access to the improved application as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
But it also gets connected with the towns, their GIS licensing as well. So our goal on the program side was not to make it an expensive proposition for the community on an annual basis. So right now, the cost is minimal, if not, I don't think it's all wrapped into our contract for 3 years.
Okay.
It's my understanding that we had access ongoing for 3 years.
Yeah.
So we've
3-year
paid you for the
contract.
3 years, and then we
For
re-up
access.
for years.
And then we would ask you, depending upon what your goals are, if you want to move ahead with a reinspection program, then we would give you a proposal to do a reinspection of the roadways. And then that could then include an additional 2 or 3 years of support as well. So we're flexible in how you want to do that. Some communities, they'll just have us, they won't do a reinspection, but they'll hire us for support. Or they'll have us come in and help you with a bond referendum, for instance, if you want to frame a bond and go to a public meeting. So we do a lot of services like that. Or develop a capital plan or some bid documents or something like that. So there's a lot of different things that we can help you with.
So you've helped towns float bonds.
We have,
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah.
But before we go, I think we ought to give Sam Stivers a lot of credit for this. Sam pushed this and pushed this and pushed it till we finally got it
I was a
done.
voice in the wilderness for a
Yes, you
long
were,
time. but
you
it's,
were, and got done. And I think the money, I mean, I think it's $35,000 is what the what it was, right? That is clearly well spent with what we've gotten back from this.
Well, at least Bill has a tool now that I think can be very helpful going
Yeah,
forward.
I want to underscore, I'd redo every road in town if I could, but the reality is we have a finite budget and we have to prioritize things, and this is helping us do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I hate to throw this in here, but is there a system for failing drainage and culverts?
Yeah, we actually do that. We do that type of work where we would inspect the drainage system, culverts, similar type application where it would be mapped in a GIS. And then there's different inspections that you would follow. A risk analysis could be developed, similar to like the CBV, where you could have a drainage pipe or a culvert, might have a certain level of risk associated with it, how it would affect the community if this culvert or bridge, example, were to get blown out and it's on a major arterial. What are the impacts of that on the community? And there's grants, there's actually grant money that you could pursue, we can help you pursue if you want for that. Yeah, there's a lot of good, I'll tell you, one thing that's great about Massachusetts, there's a lot of really great grant opportunities that are out there.
So we did get a pipe camera
Camera,
inspection
yep.
kit that we got funded through the Commonwealth Community Cabinet. So it's actually 3 towns that are sharing one piece of equipment. And the idea of getting that is to help us with this very thing, so that when we prioritize a road, we can go out and do an inspection on the drainage system.
That's the kind of thing that would be great to have, but you might not want to know when you see the results.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
But the worst thing is if you pave a road and spend
Right, yeah.
$100,000
Oops.
and then it collapses,
Yeah.
that's why it's nice
Not,
to do your
not
due
too good.
diligence.
That's right, so,
All right, thanks.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Sue, that's such a good thing.
Okay, you get the, all right, so the next item on the agenda is poll hearing. And Mark, could you please read the public hearing notice?
Sure, the Southborough Select Board shall hold a public hearing Tuesday, May 21, 2024, at 7 PM, McAuliffe Hearing Room, Southborough Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass. Consider a petition by Mass Electric Company, National Grid, to install a pole on Southville Road at the intersection of Parkerville Road. The meeting may also be listened to or viewed by the public through a link located at https://ma-southborough.civicplus.com/674/virtual meetings.
Okay, and is there someone from National Grid here?
Jeff is here from National Grid. I believe that Ms. Hale has just brought him into the room.
I am here. Good evening, everybody.
Hi. So could you just give us kind of a snapshot of what you're looking to do here?
The pole is going to be supporting existing pole 21, which would be across the street from it, which would be pole 21-84, just for extra support on the top of the pole because of the strain from the spacer cable that's there. That wire has about 3,000 PSI of tension on it. So the pole needs extra support, which would be why we're installing that pole.
Okay. And here, I think there is a sidewalk on that street, but this would be in a place that wouldn't interfere with the sidewalk, right?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, all right, maybe the other side? Yeah.
So the pole is not going to carry any power lines or
Yep.
whatever, it's just a support pole, correct?
That is correct.
And you're here to speak to would like to come up and just introduce yourselves and,
It's our land or our corner, and I just wondered, there's a pole right behind that existing pole.
Can you introduce yourself first so we know who you are?
James Carlo,
Okay.
174 Southfield Road.
Thank you.
There's about 20 feet behind that existing pole, there's another pole. I'm not sure why that pole can't be improved to perform the same function.
It seems like each pole is owned by someone else. It would have been helpful to know, because there's so many poles already on that corner. There's 3 right there on the corner, including the one that they're saying they want to support. If they put it on the corner there, which is our property, I'm just curious that it puts it like very next to or very close to, I'm very uncertain exactly where they're planning to drop that pole and how close that is to the other pole. It does have a number on it, but there's no way for us to know kind of whose poles are whose. It has a number, if that means anything to you all. It has like these metal numbers on it, 1-8, number 1-8, and then it's got an upside down 5-1. So
Okay,
I'm
you-
not sure whose
so
pole
that
that
pole that's
is.
on the-
If we know, anybody know that pole is there? It seems they want to put another one where there already is one.
Is that the one that's near the stop sign?
No, the stop sign's on the other side of the road.
Okay.
The sidewalk's on the other side of the road. I've already taken down a tree to accommodate lines there, and I'm
Also,
willing to go
I
with
know
what's
what,
needed,
that
but it just
that
seems
pole
like
supports
there's
your
a
power
lot
to your
of
house.
poles there.
Excuse me?
There's a pole that's on the opposite side of pole 21 that provides power to what I believe is the property across the street from pole 21, near where pole 21-84 is going to go to.
Did you see the map? You have the map.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's-
Yeah, I
it
have
only
it,
has
but it's really
some-
incomplete about showing all the other poles and whose poles are those. And, that's why I'm wondering, this pole that's sitting near where they want to put another one, whose pole is that? There's barely any lineage on that pole whatsoever. It seems like could accommodate more wiring. So I'm just wondering if they're paying for another pole that doesn't
So-
really be needed.
I can explain. So the way the tension is on that pole, the angle that I'm seeing the pole that you're talking about that's near the White House. Is that your house, the White House with the two-car garage?
No, the land where you want to put the pole is ours. 257 Parkerville is on the other side of where you want to put the pole. So
Okay.
this is our corner you're talking about. And my main concern, I understand if you need a damn pole, okay, you need another 17 poles on the corner. But my concern is there's where, I'm unclear exactly how far in from the street they're coming, if that's gonna block our only access to the back of our property. There's like an opening there that we've
see this.
created,
yeah.
and if they put it in the middle of that, it totally blocks back access to our property for removing trees or whatever, which we've had to do a lot of.
So I know, just as a suggestion, I think, and sometimes where this has come up before, Jeff, one of the things that National Grid has done is you can directly connect with the property owner so that when you're constructing it, you kind of coordinate with them to find a way that, because I'm looking just on the Google Maps, I see what you're talking about. It's kind of like almost like a driveway.
It
You
is
could take a
grass,
dr-
it's just grass,
It's grass, but it almost, you could take a
I
truck
mean, I
back
have
there.
pictures
and
of
they
it
have,
if you
that's
need,
how
I
the
took pictures
tree
of the
removal
corner.
Yeah.
trucks can,
So Jeff, and we've done this before too, can someone meet the owners of that house and discuss this with them so that you can also understand what they're concerned about as far as not being able to access their backyard?
Yeah, I can make that happen.
If I have
Typically,
to take down another
the,
tree on the corner, I'm willing to do that. I just don't want to block our only access.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a map of this. It looks like it's something that could just be easily done. You just have a meeting and cite it.
I just don't
if
want
the
them
tree,
to come and say, oh, look, that would be the easiest place to pop it, right?
And you could also point out the poles across the street that don't look like they are overburdened to you that you can say, well, why can't you use one of those? And so,
Well, and
whatever.
that's the thing, I
We'd
don't
like to
know,
talk to them,
I don't know
sure.
whose pole that is, and if he considers that extra 10 feet being too far from the other pole to
it does, it
support.
has, it's not about the 10 feet, it's about the angle at which the guy wire to support the pole has to be because of physics. The way that I'm looking at it, that pole would be supported, you have like a tree directly across from it prior to your opening that you would use to go to your backyard.
Well, see, that's where I'm unclear. I don't know where this dot is on the map in terms of how far that is in.
Do you know if there's a stake out there for where he would propose the pole? Because usually they would stake it out for
I've never seen one.
a visual.
They're
So what
saying
I can-
no.
What I can do is I can have Cameron, who is the designer for this project, I can have him reach out to you if you want to leave me your number, and I can have him contact you directly.
Yeah, because if we could just have a little say to move it, that it's not blocking would be a big help.
Okay, so do we have Jeff's contact information?
We may have it in the
Yeah.
office.
Okay. Jeff, what's the best way to reach you, so we can just give you, I'm sorry, your name again was?
James Pello.
James,
You can reach me at Jeffrey, JEFFREY .Silva, SILVA, at nationalgrid.com.
Could you give the last name again, sorry? S,
Silva, ILVA.
okay, all right, at nationalgrid.com?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So then we,
And just one other thought, where they're proposing to put this pole, I'm just a little unclear how close it is to the other pole or whatever, but there's also a no dig sign there that it says AT&T, no dig.
I saw that too,
There's
there's
an
a- yeah.
underground cable that runs on
Yep,
the
yeah, I see
opposite
that.
side of the opening there.
Yeah, I see it, I
So
see it.
I'm sure they're not gonna wanna get too close to that. Then they're gonna have dig.
That would be on the
Typically,
complete other side of the,
what they usually use a vac truck now. You don't typically use excavation trucks anymore if they know that there's utilities in the area that they could potentially hit. So they would grab a vac truck and vac out the dirt and send it out. If dig safe states that it's something there.
yeah, but that's between the utilities to sort out that they
yeah.
Correct.
obligated to not hit somebody else's lines.
Yeah, well, see, I'm just thinking because
They do
of
that.
that line there,
Yeah.
they're gonna say, oh, right here in the middle of that opening.
But in
we're gonna
theory,
wanna put-
you can work that out with
Yeah.
a site visit to,
So I think one of the ways we've handled this before is we could vote to approve this on the condition that,
They do a
So
site
they
visit to
do a
meet.
site
with
parties
the-
visit
yeah.
meet and
yeah.
reach an agreement on where the pole goes.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
And then Jeff, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear you. You're going to have to give me the email address one more time so I can give it to them. Okay. JEFF,
Jeff,
yep,
FREY
yep,
dot Silva, SILVA.
okay, correct.
V as in Victor.
Yep. At nationalgrid.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to offer you a constructive criticism. In the future, when you present these sort of schematics, it would be highly desirable if you did it on the town GIS system so that we had, some somewhat more accurate view than the thing we have here. Just print it out, and even if you just make a hand notation of where you want the pole, just, it would provide us significantly more information.
I can assure you that I do it differently, and everybody has their own method. But I can reach out to the contractor that did this to let him know that you had
Yeah,
made.
I find it very useful to, even though I know the GIS system is not completely accurate as to where boundaries are, it's instructive at least.
Yeah,
Also,
it helps. Yep.
also, as we've seen, it's helpful to have a stake in the ground where the new pole is supposed to go, so
That is
folks
also-
know more
If they
clearly.
had a stake there, you might not have even need to bother with us.
Yeah. So,
Is
And you
there,
guys have been great.
is there anyone else who wants to offer a comment on this?
So how are they going to get connected? That's what I don't understand.
You wrote down his email address? You wrote down his email address, did you?
No, I.
Okay, I
can't
wrote it
make out
down,
what
so
he's
here's,
saying.
so if you reach out to Mr. Silva, then, okay,
We just don't want to give your phone number in public. That's
Yeah,
what we're
that's-
trying to avoid here.
okay.
I think he was JEFFREY
Dot Silva
dot
at nationalgrid.com.
SILVA.
Andrew wrote it
I
down.
wrote it down there for you. Okay, so what I meant by that is, do we think we're ready to close the public hearing and then take a vote? Okay, so I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor? Okay, and then I move that we approve the application for the new pole on the condition that a representative of National Grid meet on the site with Mr. Carlo? Carlo. T.
Carlo.
Mr. and Mrs. Carlo to coordinate the exact location of the pole.
And have an agreement on the
And-
location.
And agree on
Okay.
it.
Only put it in my opening, do I have any recourse?
Okay, so
And they have to agree.
okay, let me take that back. I move that we approve the application for the new pole on the condition that National Grid meet on site with Mr. and Mrs. Tarlo, okay, sorry, and come up with an agreement about the location of the pole.
That'd be good.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
And I guess it would be useful, once that happens, if you folks would follow up with us through Mr. Purple to say, you know, we've
We did it.
got
and
agreement.
We're happy.
And then we'll do the paperwork for it. So, good.
How many-
okay.
How many
Very
poles,
much.
Thank
how
you,
many
guys.
poles are
Okay,
there
thanks.
now?
There are so many poles in that
Lots.
corner,
There's
it's
4
ridiculous.
or 5 in a very,
And
small
I hope it
area.
is just a support pole and not with more of the noisy, what do you call them, transformers?
Well, the hummy things?
That like start buzzing.
sounds like it's not, just,
He says it's a support
Just a
pole.
support pole.
That's what he said, so.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Silva.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for your patience while we did the beta.
Yeah, I was cleaning my basement. Thank you.
Okay, so just moving on to Chair's report. I guess over the years, we've had kind of reported on resignations of board committee members in different ways. Usually it's just been under consent agenda. But I guess we don't actually need to do that if someone has submitted their resignation to the town clerk, that we don't need to have it on a consent agenda. Sometimes we've done that as a way to call it out and to thank them for, but in any event, so I'm reporting this because someone recently asked me if there was something intended by doing this under a chair's report, but then not under the consent agenda, but no. So I just wanted to inform everyone of some recent resignations. Steve Valentine, who is a neighbor of mine, and he serves on the Tricentennial Committee. He's the Veterans Representative to the Tricentennial Committee and is also a former police officer in Southborough. Due to him taking a new job in Washington, D.C., has to submit his resignation for the Tricentennial Committee. And about a month ago, C.J. Tully, who's on the Open Space Preservation Committee, informed us that he was going to be stepping down from the committee. So just wanted to inform the board of that. And then, we'll be taking up filling those positions in the next board reappointment cycle.
I think it's worth mentioning the service.
Absolutely.
As we've seen, it's a real commitment, and
Yeah.
sometimes hard to find people to volunteer
Yes.
for these things.
And I know I expressed that to email to both of them, but just on behalf of the board, we want to thank Mr. Tully and Mr. Valentine for the time they put in volunteering on these boards.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so turning to a members report. Kathy, I think you have the first one.
Okay, so here is my, going to be probably every meeting update on the NERI project. The preliminary design program, PDP, document has been submitted to the MSBA biodesign team today. It's over 1,000 pages. The document describes 12 different scenarios and provides a preliminary estimate of the cost of each. The preliminary cost estimates range from $51 million net to $122 million net. By net, I mean net of the state contribution, which is currently estimated at about 18% of the total project cost. The NBC Communications Subcommittee will be communicating this info in the next release on the dedicated NBC website. The NBC committee only got these numbers about a week ago, so this is all fresh news. The cost estimates are very preliminary and based on the maximum space needs of the K-5 school system as mandated by the state. The preliminary estimates, for the most part, were made using the estimated square footage of each scenario, so will be revised and updated over the summer as more information is obtained. So when I said preliminary, they are very preliminary. The submission date for the Neary Building Committee's final recommendation for which of the 12 projects to proceed with is due the last week of August. The NBC Finance Subcommittee will meet on 5/28 to begin the discussion on the impact of the current estimates on the long-term budget of the town, which I expect to be a significant factor in the final project recommendation to be brought forth to town meeting.
Okay. Marguerite, you had an update on the C-Click-Fix software update?
Oh, yes. C-Click-Fix. To date, DPW is interested, planning is interested, building department, including all the other subsections there, and conservation have told me that they are interested in C-Click-Fix. Apparently, it is a sub-software that's offered by Civic Plus, and MTC is also for it, as I understand it. So I think Jay got what do we call, an estimate, which he thinks, I don't know, it's $7,500 for a year. And that I think it would be a significant cost saver for the town, actually, because a lot of people are spending salary hours tracking down phone calls from people and so on and so forth, and deciding where a particular piece of data should be going when a resident calls in. So if people don't know C-Click-Fix, it's used by Marlborough, it's used by Natick, it's used by Framingham, it's used by, I think, Medway. It's used by a lot of towns, and it is enormously fabulous. You just use your phone to take a picture of what's a problem, and it goes into the system. So I highly recommend looking at, say, Marlborough or Framingham's website. When you report an issue, you can put in the piece of data right there. It shows up on a map. Anyone can access it, and you can see what the status is of the repair or the concern. So I'm going to suggest that we try it for a year.
Okay, and
So-
maybe this is a next
Yep.
agenda item.
Agenda item, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And folks might take a look at it. I mean, Framingham uses it, and so you can go to Framingham and click on that and look at the structure and follow-up. Technology Committee actually took a look at a pothole complaint there, and it showed the history of, when it was reported, who responded, what happened, status, and so forth. Locates these things on a map so you can see in town, where these things are being reported. And pretty interesting tracking tool that you can, I think, have reporting out of that says, how are we doing in terms of follow-up? How many of these are closed? How many are still open? And so forth. So, again, a management tool, and the question is, how do you use it? I think that's what a pilot project would do, is figure out, does it make sense or not?
So at the meeting that we decide it's a go, if that's what we do, we've got to figure out how to pay for it, because this is not in Jay Montijo's fiscal year 25 budget, so we will have to find money.
So we do have, just one other piece on this, we do have a demo scheduled for I believe it's next Wednesday at 1 PM. So all the department heads have been invited to take a look at this, ask questions, because, again, and I've talked with Marguerite about this, and I appreciate her shepherding this, is, whether your department is interested or not, this is something that is going to be for all town departments. So if there are issues that are brought to our attention, the department who's responsible for those issues is going to get it, whether they want it or not. It's just another mechanism of getting them rather than a phone call and email. And I think the descriptor with the picture, does help. And also, to the point Mr. Stiver just made, the tracking of it, is a little bit easier. And, there's a level of accountability with it as well. So, I think if we get good response, if the board is willing to move forward on this, then we'll have to talk about, as Ms. Cook just said, how we're gonna find the money, because we don't have this budgeted for next year.
Okay.
And if residents want to look and they can't obviously attend the tutorial, if you go to the Civic Plus website, which is civicplus.com, you can explore, there are five very quick tutorials on how Quick Fix works, and you can see it for yourself, so.
All right, thanks. Al?
Yes, so it's come to my attention via the Finn Playground that the Chestnut Hill CSA has suspended operations. And so I've sort of been reaching out and poking at what's been going on there. And there's sort of two issues here. I guess I was surprised to find this out this way, and it appears that the trustees who are the owners of the land have experienced some financial challenges over the last couple of years and have scaled back on some of their operations, including their farm operations. They have not suspended all farm operations, but they definitely have suspended Chestnut Hill and at least one other operation that they've had in Massachusetts. My concern is that this is another business that contributes to the quality of life in town that has left, and that's not a good thing. I don't know that this is necessarily an issue related to the CR. I don't know whether it is or it isn't, and whether, it's, and I'm not questioning the Conservation Commission's management of their CR responsibilities, but I think we need to look into this in a more detailed way to find out what the trustees need to make this into a successful, profitable operation. They're going to be meeting with the Conservation Commission on the 30th, and I'm planning on attending and asking questions.
Good.
And they have met with the trustees
Yes.
previously, at least once, and there does seem to be a lot of uncertainty about that. So, and the CR actually does have some language in there about farming operations, I think. So.
Yes.
It doesn't require it, Sam.
Doesn't
It's
require
not-
it, yeah, but
Allowed but not required.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't think that would be the focus of the meeting with Conservation. So are you going to go to talk to them about their business of running?
I'm going to try and suppress my desire to just charge in. I'm going to listen first, but yes, I think ultimately a conversation with the trustees about what it takes to be successful and what we can do to help them be successful.
Yeah, I don't know who's coming that night, but they might not be ready for that conversation. So
Right.
I don't know why you wouldn't pick up the phone, just call the trustees and talk to them directly as far as, there's got to be someone there that made this decision, right?
Yes.
And kind of understand, what their game plan is
I think
long-term.
that's the key thing, understanding what they're thinking about this and figure out, is that something that we are okay with, or can we think
Or
about
is there something we can do to
Yeah.
influence that decision
Absolutely.
or help?
Know how much we'd like it to be a farm, operate a farm, and what can we do to help out?
Yeah,
Agree.
okay.
And-
If that's the board's
Yeah,
direction, I will follow up.
that one works better without charging in too, so.
All right. Mark?
Thank you. A couple of items. First of all, we, and when I say we, I mean Ms. Hale, is working with Chief Puntini. It's nice to put chief in front of that finally. Chief Puntini on his installation ceremony. It's set for June 1st, 2024 at 11 a.m. at the community center. And Ms. Hale is working with the chief just to finalize the details on that. So you'll be getting more information and emails probably over the course of this week. The next item, on May 8th, we issued a successor agreement for our electricity aggregation program. We had worked with Peregrine Energy, who is our energy consultant for this program. They solicit the pricing for us, they evaluate the pricing for us, and because the pricing comes in around noontime and we have 2 to 3 hours to execute, the board has granted me the authority in the past to execute with consultation with the chair. So pricing came in on the 8th. Again, the pricing was better than what they've seen in recent procurements they've done for other communities, but it obviously is a little bit higher. We've gotten away from the peak, but we're not all the way back down to where we were with the current contract, which expires at the end of November. The current contract, we have our current contract is 10.99 cents per kilowatt hour. The new contract is 13.016 cents per kilowatt hour. For comparison purposes, National Grid, right now through the end of July is 18.2 cents per kilowatt hour. They will issue new pricing in August, which will carry them through to January 2025, estimating that's going to be somewhere around 14 cents or a little bit north of 14 cents, so the aggregation price will still be better. We do have the same option that we had with the current contract for people who want to use all green power, so wind, solar. That adds an additional 2.87 cents per kilowatt hour, a total of 15.886 cents per kilowatt hour. And one of the options that we were offered this year that I thought would be nice to try is people who want to do a little bit green, but really don't want to go the full boat. So if we have a
Pale green?
yes, pale green. So if we want to go with a 50% renewable option, it adds an additional 0.87 cents, so it's a 13.886 cents per kilowatt hour. Peregrine has said that they are offering it in one other community at this point. There is some interest in it. There's no harm in us putting this in and offering it to our residents and our businesses. So this is going to be effective December 1st. There'll be updates that'll be going out. We'll have materials being prepared by Peregrine to send out to all customers who are aware of this. There is nothing to do if you simply want to roll over what you're currently doing, whether it's your green choice or your basic choice. It will simply roll into the new contract. If you want to change, all of that information, those instructions will be available, and as we get closer, I'll report back on this so the board is aware of how that message is getting out there and information on the
I
program.
think last year, did we, everyone gets mailed a postcard of the
Right,
opportunity?
yep.
Yes,
Very effective,
there's
yeah.
postcards, and also when there's notification of a change in owner for a residence or business, information is sent out to them on the program. So we are notifying, so once there's change in owners, that information is sent out to give people those, the same opportunity to participate in the program.
With what we did last year, we also added a lot of new people. It was
We did.
30-something, I think,
Well-
added because of what you did as far
Correct.
as the,
But in part, when we did it last year, the national grid rate was 33 cents a kilowatt hour. Huge
So
differential.
people did very
Crazy.
well, yeah, right, so people
Yeah.
did very well. I mean, normally, it's not that much of a difference,
yeah.
but there are instances like
Yep.
that where, you help protect people from some of those spikes.
Yep.
but in this day and age, when a lot of people are using heat pumps, which is all electric, and electric cars, that 5 cents a kilowatt hour can add up.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And one other item, I just got this today, and I was trying to figure out a way to do this, and you know what? I'm simply just going to read it. I think it's the best way to go. It's a letter from the Massachusetts Association of Public Health Nurses. Dear Mr. Purple, the Massachusetts Association of Public Health Nurses has awarded Taylor West with the Presidential Award on May 9, 2024. Taylor was recognized for outstanding contribution to our organization and to her commitment to public health nursing. Taylor's been involved in the Leadership Matters team for local public health nursing standards and working with these minimum standards to provide Massachusetts with the foundational workforce public health services. These standards are now in the hands of the Office of Local and Regional Health at the Mass Department of Public Health. The MDPH are currently working on incorporating these standards into health departments across the Commonwealth. Taylor serves on the executive board as a MAPHN secretary, and she additionally serves as president of the Metro West Central chapter of our organization. Taylor loves public health nursing, supports our organization initiatives, and promotes public health nursing excellence. We are so proud of her and the work she's done and what she continues to do, and I personally couldn't think of any other nominee deserving of this award. Sincerely, Gail Johnson, BSN RN Public Health Nurse. I think it's, we know we have good employees and we know that we have good people working for us. It's really nice when people outside of the community also recognize those same employees. So I just
That's
wanted to
outstanding.
bring that to the board and publicly, give her kudos for this award and for the things that, she does for the town.
Great news.
Nice way to end the report. So.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, so on the consent agenda, I'm going to hold the approval of the executive session meeting minutes for May 13 and the open session meeting minutes for May 7.
And I want to hold open session for May 8th, or April 8th, rather.
Okay,
I want to vote C.
okay. All right, so the staff appointments, the column, it says appoint through 6/30/24, but obviously we're doing it through the 27th.
6/30/25.
Okay, so with that understanding, I move that the board approve the approval of the open session meeting minutes for May 13, and consent agenda items, actually, did someone hold C?
I did.
Okay, okay. So I move that we approve, in addition to the open session meeting minutes for May 13, consent agenda items B, D, and F.
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor? Okay. Sam, do you want to start on the April 8th?
April 8th, two small things. Line 1 should be Monday, April 8th. Line 37 should be April 8th. Strategic edits here.
Yes.
Sorry, I can't resist.
Oh, those are good ones. And,
Character flaw.
okay, so on the edits I had to the May 7 minutes on line 15, Aspen Wood is one word, not two words. And I think the spelling of Kristen Lavalt's last name on line 155 is not correct. I think it's Lavavalt.
Yes, ULT, yeah.
And those are the only edits I had.
I've got three more.
Okay.
Line 73 is SCBA, not scuba. The fire department doesn't operate underwater.
I was- Okay, yeah,
Maybe budgetarily, but
all right. Yeah,
not physically. Line 126 is OSPC.
yes.
Line 215, Middle Road.
Oh, yes.
Just to prove I read it. That's it.
Okay, so I move the board approve the April 8 and May 7 meeting minutes as amended.
Second?
All those in favor? Okay, Sam, did you,
Kathy held.
Kathy, you held the Board of Health IMA.
So not because I don't support doing this, obviously I do. I just wanted to give the Board of Health, and especially Chelsea Malinowski, a shout out here. I think that the Board of Health continues to go the right direction. This grant was $300,000 that was shared between the 4 towns. It was our first stab at using regional resources to provide services that we didn't have here, or that we didn't need to have a full-time person here. We've ended up with some robust services that we didn't have before, including food inspection. There was a big debate between Select Board and Advisory a few years ago on the Health Department budget. And there was the vote on the floor at regular town meeting, May 22 at Algonquin, 1-by-1 vote as far as approving that budget. Advisory didn't want the budget approved, Select Board did. But putting that aside, I think this has gone in a great direction, and I applaud them for continuing to look at the benefits to regionalize something among towns when you don't need someone full-time to do things.
I will second that and add that I think over the last decade or more, we've actually transitioned from the health department being basically septic permitting to more of a public health and inspectional services related to public health issues, which I think of as a full-service public health operation, which is fairly invisible to the public generally, but very important if it's not done properly, because you got people having access to various infections or whatever that could be really problematic. So I think this is a great step, continued step in the right direction here. And again, we talk about regionalization. This one makes great sense in terms of assets that no single town our size can afford to have, but it's critical that we find a way to deliver the services. So again, second, the kudos to the Board of Health and Health Department for the good work here.
And just like regional dispatch, the state is clearly supporting regionalization, which is why they
Yeah,
are funding these
yeah.
grants.
One other thing relative to this agreement, I took a look at it last night and had some what I think of as Scrivener's errors that need to be corrected. And so the one that went around today, I think, was picked up on those. And so the vote, I think here, that the Board of Health is looking for, that we support it and authorize our chair to review any final wordsmithing changes and sign on behalf of the board, because there are a few tiny things in here that needed to be updated.
That's fine with me, and one of those changes, I think, on page 3 to 4 of the document, the
Yeah.
one that was in our packet, is just weird. It looks like a
It-
typo.
Well, it's missing, the thing on top of page 4 should have been the first thing on the list of things, of items that the new group is responsible for.
Yeah.
So it should have been point number 4. It is on yours, point number 4?
Okay, see how,
Wait a minute, let me see the one you have here. Yeah, this one is not the current version. Okay. This roles and responsibilities should be subsection D here. So that should be up here, it should be D, and then it starts 1, 2, 3 below that. So all the words are there, but just not organized exactly right.
So have you got a list of things that they need to fix?
Chelsea has it, she's getting it fixed.
Okay, all
And
right, so she knows.
that's the one we'll
about
work
this.
with, yeah.
so do you want to make the motion, or, because I'm comfortable with what you're suggesting?
Okay, so I move that the Select Board supports this agreement, is prepared to sign the agreement, subject to final review and editing, wordsmithing that Mr. Dennington will coordinate with the Board of Health.
Or that
Or the chair.
The next chair.
The
that we
chair,
elect.
okay, our chair will
Okay.
coordinate with the chair of the Board of Health.
Can I suggest a modification? Chelsea will get this done. Just say, subject to the changes that you sent to Chelsea.
That's fine with me. So I will amend the motion to that effect.
Second. All those in favor?
Good, great.
Okay, so obviously we'll take up the executive session meeting minutes in executive session, and it's already on the agenda anyway.
When are you going to take a break?
You want to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Recording stopped.
Okay, so turning to the other matters on the agenda, the next one on the agenda is continued discussion of one-stop grant opportunities. So I think many of us have seen some of the recent emails that are expressing disappointment about the fact that we have not submitted a one-stop grant application for looking into ways to update Route 9 zoning. And I think, due to the recent attention to the issues with I think it's the Stronger Uprising Gym, I definitely think it's a very important issue. At this point, the deadline for expressions of interest is already passed, and that the deadline for a complete submission of a one-stop application is, I believe, June 6th, June 5th, right? And today's May 21st, and we have Memorial Day weekend coming up. I think that in order to for the town to put, its best foot forward, I think one of the things that we could do is commit to, as one of our goals for the next coming year, and, we were going to be discussing those at a standalone meeting where we come up with our own goals and as well select some of the goals for the town administrator, to have that be one of our goals, so that basically we know this same time next year, and it really would be in the February time period. We would have, this would have to be previewed to the planning board, okay, because we want their buy-in as well. Get the full support of the EDC, as well as Leah Emerson, our EDC coordinator, so that we have, an application which really has gone through the proper process, and I think that would give us the best chance of result, rather than trying to do something, in the next 10 days to try to meet the deadline. So I think this is the way I think we could balance the concerns that we've heard. Kathy, what do you think about that?
So I know we are going to disappoint our friend Claire Reynolds when we say this, but so on town election day, when I was inside voting, I ran into Rob Anderson and Claire, and we had a long talk, and Rob Anderson sent us an email.
Yep.
So he believes that we've got a pretty good chance of success by focusing a grant on Route 9 corridor. He said that's what the state's looking at now, is corridors, trying to get your corridors going. So I don't, whether you call it zoning, whether you call it just trying to improve the business climate here, you give businesses the ability to come here. I don't care, but I do think we need to do it right, and it's going to take some time, and we certainly should make sure we get the input from planning board, and absolutely work with Leah on this to do it right. But I think it should be a goal, maybe for both Mark and select board, but also put a time on it. Don't even wait to February. Do it in the fall when we've got some extra time and we're not worried about the budget, et cetera. So we've got it teed up, because what keeps happening to us, we get through town meeting and then we start focusing on this and we don't have enough time. This is at least 3 years in a row this has happened. So we go forward with the one that Vanessa's working on. For June 5th, and then know that we really are going to get this done this time and have a robust grant application, well-written, well-vetted, so hopefully we'll have a successful outcome.
I agree.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Marguerite, Al?
I got the same earful from Claire, and she's right.
So are you on board with the concept that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, Claire had her druthers, we do it right now for this submission, and we're saying we don't think we can get it done right for June 5th.
Here's the concern I have, is if we kind of throw this together and then it gets denied, it gets rejected, then we're not as well positioned if we had taken the time and get all our ducks lined up. And
Really complete application.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had something that we, could do quickly, was lower priority, that wouldn't be so, disadvantaged potentially, and then do, the full one next year, maybe, but I'm hard pressed to think of one that I'm willing to sacrifice to just get something in at this point.
If we want to be on the same page as the planning board, I think it's going to require more work than.
Right, yep.
And I'm not sure we get complete support, but at least I think it deserves,
Yeah,
You know,
conversation.
They deserve a right to
conversation,
weigh in on this,
absolutely,
for
yes.
sure.
and, you know, part of this has to do if there's often a town match that's part of this, right, in
Right.
terms of in-kind, staff hours, and that definitely would probably involve some work from the town planner, and there should be a discussion about that before we just put it in an application. So I don't think we need to take any votes on that, unless there's a,
Right,
and I also think that, you know, the
Yeah.
application which we are working on, the wayfinding downtown application for the tricentennial celebration, I think is something that's interesting, and that would be really nice to see that be successful. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, there's Matt Probst in the MTC. I think it might be just Matt that did it without a full meeting of the MTC. But he's got, I think, a very nice survey here that follows up on the concerns that we had from Andrea Hamilton and Mary Tinty about, you know, the scheduling of the fall town meeting. So this is a survey which asks, I think it's nice and compact, asks some basic questions about what people's preferences are in terms of Saturday, you know, weekday versus weekend. And there's also a good question there, you know, what are the key factors that drive you to attend or not to attend? So it'd be good to get some data on that. So is everyone good for sending out that survey?
absolutely, yeah. And again, I think with data, that sort of gets it out of the, you know, my opinion, your opinion kind of thing.
Yep.
And my bet is there will be enough of a shift there in terms of clear results, that even if it's not 60-40 or something like that, I think that gives us plenty to go on.
So then we take it from here, we approve this, and then it's MTC that takes care of taking this out, or Jay?
Yeah,
Two of them working together?
yeah, they will figure out, Matt and Jay, to send it out. And then we got to worry about publicity, how do we do that?
Absolutely.
But Jay can work with Mark and other staff to publicize it, and leave it open for a couple of weeks or something, and then see what we get, and watch how the response is, and continue to push through the town website and other places for advertising it.
What's the date that we have to fix a town meeting?
45 days?
But
Yeah, but we want
pretty
it
soon
done
for
well.
planning
Yeah,
purposes, though.
and so, but because of the planning board's need to know that date, because of MBTA, we need to set that date soon.
Yep.
We had tentatively thrown out September 23rd, which is a Monday, with 24th being the second night, but, you know, then we got the pushback as far as doing a weeknight meeting. So we've got to set it soon.
Yep.
Right, Mark?
Yes.
So this still sounds a little loosey-goosey. Okay, so who's doing what with this? Can we be clear?
Matt Probst is going to finalize it and then publicize it, send it out.
Okay, so we've approved it tonight,
Yeah.
right? Are we going to, I don't know if we're going to vote?
Yeah, so I move that we approve the MTC survey for the fall town meeting date and time.
Second?
All those in favor?
All right. And again, I think that, you know, all of us could probably wordsmith this some. On the other hand, I think this gets the essence of what we're asking, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, so who takes it from here? You?
Mark sends it back to Matt, right?
Okay, so you're going to let Matt know we approved it?
Yes, yep.
Here it is.
Let
And
him
then
know right now.
work with Matt to figure out what does he do to publicize these things normally, because MTC has done several of these.
Sure.
Last one got like 400.
Should we get
plus
for,
responses.
you know, 2 weeks? 2 weeks?
My thought is to, you know, after it's launched, at least a couple of weeks, see how it's going.
Yep.
And if it's going slowly, then we beat the bushes a little more. If
Okay.
it's not going slowly, then, my sense is if we get, you know, 200 or 300 responses,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good sample, actually.
This is a pretty quick one
Oh, yeah.
compared to the town survey,
Yeah,
which
oh,
still got, you know, over 400.
400,
And that
that's
one
right.
took a while to do, so I think
Yep.
you'll get some responses on
And
this.
statistical significance is around 300 or 400, something like that. in terms
It
of
is?
95% confidence level.
It is?
So, yeah,
Okay.
so, out of 7,000 registered voters. Right, but if you got a population of 7,500 registered voters, for example. Yeah, I calculated like 300 or something at that, yeah, so. Anyway, so that's, I think will give us useful information. We'll see what happens then, so.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, recruitment to fill board and committee vacancies. You know, there's not that much to really dig into here, other than to just preview that at the, and I'm looking at, you know, Mark
Yes.
and Kathy here, that at the next meeting, we'll have a list of proposed reappointments for the board and committees, right?
Yeah, I have some thoughts about this. Should I feed them to Mark, or,
Sure.
okay?
But I think that, you know, the list I just distributed, this is not finalized. This
Right,
is not-
understand, yeah.
Okay, but then, once there is basically a final, and I do put in that in kind of light font, because there's still some responses you need to keep digging for, you know, then we'll make a decision about, board and committee appointments, holds, and have that done by the end of June.
But are we going to talk about that topic at our next meeting?
Yes.
Early June? Okay, good.
Yes.
Is this
That's
list
what we
totally up to
typically have
date?
done, right?
No, it is not.
Is this list up to date?
This is just, this was just prepared a couple days ago, so there's, you're still chasing some responses, right?
Yeah, this is the list that, that Melanie maintains, works with the clerk's office to make sure it's accurate. But again, there's information that's coming in. Melanie's been out the past couple of days, so I'm sure that there are some things here that.
There's at least a
Probably.
couple of resignations pending that, not on here. so
Exactly, yep.
So what I'm focused on is the very first one. Are we sure that the two people who we've had to now appoint twice have not
Okay,
been sworn in?
so Freddie Gillespie has
One
come
yes,
in
one
and has gotten sworn in.
Destin
Destin
Howland.
Hyman?
has not yet, but he's traveling, okay? And so he has until June 6th. I think I just sent him another email, just,
Apparently not.
he's traveling?
He
Okay.
is traveling, the clerk's office has been in touch with him.
Okay.
He does have it until June 6th to get sworn in.
Okay.
Well, can he get sworn in over the phone?
I don't think you can do Zoom
Yeah.
for swearing in.
That's up to Jim, I'm not sure, I'm not sure where he stands on that, yeah.
I just took a quick look here to identify committees where, you know, they're either at the point where even if we reappointed the people who wanted to be reappointed, they're only at a bare quorum, you know, so there's a need for people. In other words, there's a lot of vacancies. So my list was EDC. I think there's been a lot of turnover.
Can we go slow, start on the first page? So CIPC's been reduced to 5. That's what we did
Okay.
last town meeting, so there's not vacancies there.
Cable television is a.
Cable
fair
television is one where there's
Right,
a
but
need.
the bylaw change is not approved yet, so it's still showing as the two vacancies.
Okay, but you know that.
But I know that, yes.
Okay, so we're cable TV, EDC, CPC, and then there's some issues there because we have at least 2 boards which are supposed to be sending reps, which haven't sent reps. And the Open Space Preservation Commission, after the resignation of CJ Tully, is just down to 3.
And
Right.
EDC is down too, right?
Yes, that was the one on my list. So I'm just giving that as thought. I think it's worth all of our attention of trying to, people who you think would be good for these committees,
Yep.
to reach out to them.
Yep. Recruiting, and
Recruiting.
also, as we're doing this, I continue to be interested in the possibility of actually sort of housekeeping around committees that have been dissolved, that still show up on the list, or that have not been functioning. There's one, I can't remember which one it is in the bylaws, that has.
Yeah, I mean,
not
I know
been
Mr.
functioning.
Litt has mentioned
Yeah.
it was the Consumer Committee or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So, again, it would be good, I think, to clean some of this stuff up as we're going along, and maybe if it requires town meeting vote, to think about that for fall town meeting.
I think part of the problem is maybe what's on the town website's not accurate as far
Yeah.
as some that have been disbanded. I'm pretty sure, I know of a couple that I know were formerly voted there, are still listed there, so we ought to
Okay.
get that cleaned
Get
up
that
too.
cleaned up, that's right.
Well, it may be if you want to come forward to the next meeting with a specific housekeeping proposal, or,
Sure.
okay, all right.
I will get my broom out.
So one more while we're talking about this. The current chair of the pilot committee, remember that was a citizens petition committee
Yes.
formed? She has requested that on the fall town meeting warrant that we reduce that committee to 5 too. So, for example, Frank is going to not re-up, he's got something going on personally. So we're going to be down to 5 again. We can't get Council on Aging to do a rep, so she wants it to be 5, and I agree with that.
Okay.
So I told her we would certainly do that.
All right, so item D is setting a meeting for just a specific meeting, the equivalent of our retreat that we had last year. I see it as just, last year we did it in early July, and I think it'd be beneficial to instead do it sooner rather than later, in part because I see a lot of our key goals as just finishing some things that are in process. And one of them is definitely the dispatch and the list of things we have for the fall town meeting, that's going to require some work over June and
Yep.
July to drive through, so.
And no reason not to do it sooner.
There's no reason not to
Yep.
do it sooner, and because we also have, I think, the benefit of just continuity on the board from last year over to this year, we don't need some more time just to start we know each other and we know how we work
Yep.
together, so let's just roll right into
And
that.
I can transfer all the things I haven't done to Al and Marguerite since they haven't had a chance.
Well, actually, and this is where maybe you and I will have I think I disagree with the approaches. I think we need a shorter list. I think we
Yes.
need a more focused list.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. And it's just kind of continuing some of the things we have in, it's like your house where you got a lot of half-completed projects.
Wait a minute.
You gotta,
You've been to my place? Yeah.
you gotta complete the half-completed projects before moving on to the next ones. But all of us have that issue, so. Okay, so then,
What day did we do that? Was it a Saturday or something, or I can't remember?
no, we did it on a
Week-
weeknight, at the
Weeknight?
public safety meeting, at the public safety building.
You did?
But
I'm pretty flexible.
we
in
could
June.
really have it anywhere, subject to availability, of
I
course.
mean, it is a public meeting, so you gotta have some space.
Yep. But it's gonna have, for me, it's gonna have to be after June 3rd, just for my own
Okay.
schedule.
I'm pretty flexible with some
Okay,
advance
so
notice.
there's gonna be a normal meeting on June 4th, and then,
I'm out of town the 13th to the 21st.
should we try, what about Tuesday, the 11th? I mean, it'd be good to do it even sooner than that if we could. But,
That works for
With
me.
Memorial Day coming, I think that's probably,
the
Flint-
the 11th?
yeah, I think that works good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 11th?
Works for me.
All
Any
right.
reason, Mark, that doesn't work?
On a Tuesday, and then exact location TBD.
So evening, 6:30 or something like that?
Yeah,
So technically, that's office hours too, so we could just overlap if people come in.
Nah,
or we could just move
No,
office
just-
hours,
We
Yeah.
can lose office hours.
or
yeah.
move them.
Move them, yeah. This is more important, I think, than office hours there.
I thought public safety building worked well as far as being able to sit in that. It is free that night. It is free? Sit in the U,
Good.
6:30.
6:30.
6:30?
Okay.
6:30 to midnight? Lot of planning.
Okay. So then, the last item on the agenda before we reorganize the board and vote to appoint a new chair, and new chair is, each year we do a performance evaluation of Mark as our town administrator. It's something we do annually, and we do it in public. And the process we followed, this is really just so not only everyone here knows, but anyone who might be watching, is begins with town administrator does a self-evaluation, and it really tracks some of the goals that we have set year to year, just like we were talking about at one of our next meetings. We're going to vote to set some goals for the town administrator for the next fiscal year. And at least the years that I've been here, there's been 4 goals, 2 which are selected by the select board, and then 2 which are selected by the town administrator, and it's kind of a collaborative process. So So this year, I believe the 4 goals were completion of an employee handbook for the town, improve communication there. The specific kind of tangible thing we were working on was instituting a new town administrator newsletter, going through the DOR financial and policy review process, and there, I believe we're going to be getting the results from that back in June.
Mid-June, yes.
Mid-June, yep. And then, and this is where it's almost strange that it seems like so much time has flown by, but one of the goals we set last year was to complete the Southborough Heritage Park, because that now, it looks so nice, and it seems like such a simple thing at the time, but it was a very challenging thing still at that time. So I think, each of those goals was accomplished. Certainly, the town administrator newsletter is out, and it's good, and, we do everything we can to try to promote it. The employee handbook has been completed. I know I participated in the DOR financial and policy review process, and that'll be very interesting to get the results from that, and the park is completed, so that's a really measurable goal where I think the goals were.
What about the IT goal?
Yeah, I looked at that. That's another thing where, the Mark mentioned that in self-evaluation, that's another thing where one of our goals for the year was to have improved communication, collaboration between the Municipal Technology Committee and our IT department, and I think we've all,
Oh, I agree, but
Yeah.
I thought that was one of Mark's goals, to do that, and I
Yeah.
agree, he's done.
Yeah.
I think we're in really good shape as far as that goes.
yeah, so that was on my list here. As well as, another thing that just kind of, you can't plan out everything over the last fiscal year, was a big theme, was onboarding people and recruiting people for some very important positions, including DPW superintendent, building commissioner,
Fire chief.
fire chief. So all these things are things you just kind of deal with, and I think we have done a good job working together on that. So then at our next meeting, we'll set the goals for FY '25. So after the self-evaluation, each member of the board completes their own evaluation, and we follow a process that's used for other employees too, where you ranked on a 1 to 5 scale of where 5 is exceptional, 4 is above expectations, 3 is meets expectations, 2 does not meet expectations, and 1 is unsatisfactory, and all these different scores were compiled. I put together a consensus review, and, the consensus review is that Mark's performance is above expectations in most categories and meeting expectations in some other categories, just in terms of the raw numbers on the 1 to 5 scale. So when the rankings were for quality of job, work knowledge, 3.7, productivity, 3.6, communication, 3.5, collaboration, interpersonal skills, 3.6, leadership, 3.5. I mean, these 0.1 differences are sometimes, not all that meaningful based on the form that's in there, but I think that's the main kind of takeaway from there. So, and the way the scores work, there, of the five of us, there is one set of rankings that was, that was consistently lower than all the others. So if you were to take that one out, then the other scores would be more in the range of between 3.8 and 4.1 for these same categories. But, so what I suggest here is, we can each just go down and speak to our own evaluation, but I'll just say, Mark, I've really, this is now beginning my 4th year on the board. I enjoy working with you. I think that you're very reliable and thorough in your work, and our meetings are very organized. You're of a great help, and as the last year when I've been the chair, and, making sure we're pretty prepared when we come to begin our meetings, and I think that you have, definitely one thing that each of the members said is, definitely after you've spent some time being a select board member, you appreciate it. You have a very challenging position. And I know one of the things which has made it challenging over the last couple years is, some of the turnover we've had in the composition of the select board over the last couple years. So I think it's an asset now that we have, continuity on the board from last year to this year. So I see that as a real, opportunity for us. I think of this as kind of a partnership and a, long-term working relationship. So I know you've spent time with me, I think, helping me become a better and more effective select board member. And, hopefully, we collectively also are working with you to we're working together to try to achieve some common goals. So certainly when you go through, there's definitely areas where we just collectively can do a better job. Another thing all of us mentioned, it's just kind of a product of the last couple of weeks, is we collectively agree we want to do a better job on some of the, one-stop applications and stuff. And it's clearly something that also has to do with, I think, some of our own, processes, right? We have some vacancies on some committees. You mentioned also we probably need to make a decision, which we began this decision about 18 months ago, about potentially more hours for the EDC coordinator position. That's something that would really help. But so, we'll just go down, but I'll just say I appreciate, the work you've done for us, and I look forward to keep, working with you in the next several years to try to, accomplish some more things, continue, modernizing the town, making it more efficient, and, I think we have a great team. I enjoy working with all of the department heads, and, I think you've done a good job integrating a lot of the new department heads and bringing together a good team. Kathy?
So I just wanted to read the first paragraph of what I wrote when we were doing the overall comments. So I said, I think Mark is a very good town administrator. His job is much more difficult than most understand. And what Andrew said is right. You don't understand what all he has to do till you actually sit here and realize what all he's got to do on a day-to-day basis, and it's a lot. It takes working with him on a regular basis, as I have done for the last 2 years, to truly understand all of the balls he has to juggle. There's hardly ever a week that something unexpected, and I mean this seriously, unexpected and serious doesn't happen. It just does, right? In this town, there's just always something that's going to pop up. He knows how to handle the majority of issues. He is particularly adept at dealing with our public safety teams, including having strong relationships with the two chiefs. He understands the union grievance process very well and uses town council, I think, very appropriately and effectively. I'm confident that Mark handles all of the day-to-day tasks he oversees well and timely. So that's kind of my general summation. So I think you're a pleasure to work with. I think you are calm under fire. And generally, when something pops up, you have a pretty good idea of what to do. And you also keep us informed very timely too. So we know that we're going to be told when we should be told of things. So I was happy to vote to renew your contract, and I think you've had a pretty good year. And I'm really still very happy with the IT piece. So let me say that one again. Okay.
Sam?
My turn, thanks. No secret that I'm the outlier in this process. And again, I do appreciate that Mark has a very challenging job, and it's basically 24/7 what's coming over the transom, and you got to deal with it, and that's a tough environment. I guess my sort of philosophy is that I think anybody can always do better, including me, and I think that's the standard that you strive for. I will say that I've seen considerable progress in a number of things that I've been concerned about in the past, and I do appreciate that. I also think it's important that we stand together on this, so I did vote to renew the agreement, and I think it's clear that that's where we're headed for the next contract period here. So I appreciate the hard work, and let's work together to get even better. Thank you.
Marguerite?
Okay, so my first year on the board, and I really appreciate how much information you were able to impart really rapidly, because I had a big learning curve, and I know you probably felt like it was the 15th time you'd done that in 5 years to bring on another board member who's sort of like, Anyway, and I think my sense of it is that, yes, you have an enormous amount of expertise, and it's like a really good athlete, they make it look easy. It's not. Anyway, so I think you have a very stabilizing influence on the whole government of the town, and I think that's really important. And again, you do make it look easy, and it's really not.
So, Mark, you do a job I could not possibly do. I'd last about 15 minutes.
I'll second that.
And so I have to applaud your tact and skill. I do appreciate, that you've done your level best to keep me out of trouble, and have a tremendous amount of knowledge that you've been helped me be through my first year on the board. I think we have things we need to work on. We all do. I've got a wife, and she's got a long list. And I think going forward, we need to work harder on, and this is for all of us as a team, work harder on communication. I think, we made a start, but I think we can be more proactive. And I think we need to focus a bit on productivity, because we are seeing slowly but surely increases in staff headcount where we aren't really seeing any substantial changes in demand. So I'm a bit concerned about that. And that's, again, this is really a global concern rather than a specific concern for you. So I too voted to extend your contract, and look forward to working with you next year.
Okay. Mark, do you want to?
Sure. So I really appreciate this, and I want you to know that even if you got up and you all individually sat here and said, you're doing okay, but you've got to do this, and you've got to work on this, and it was more of a list of grievances, the airing of, Festivus, the airing of the grievances, I would, be fine with that too. I do appreciate the nice comments. I do also appreciate that each of you kind of acknowledge that this is a team game. I'm not going to single out, Miss Hale, because she's the only other person in the room, but we do, my success and whether things rise or fall, is squarely the result of the team that we have. And we have a very good team. We have a great office, but we have great department heads. And, I'll just acknowledge, that Ms. Hill, in her partnership with me to try to make sure we continue to have a good team. And we somehow, in this hiring climate, generally find, as good, if not better people to replace those who've decided to move on. And we've got I'm excited about our new fire chief. I think that, our DPW superintendent's doing a great job, public safety, finance team, clerk's office, you name it, I think we do a great job. I also do appreciate the fact that the board has remained intact for a year. While I do enjoy building relationships, it is difficult. It takes a lot of time. I train you, you train me, and then you leave. And so I do appreciate the fact that the board is, is intact for another year. And I agree there are things we need to, work on individually and collaboratively. We will, I will continue to work as hard as I have to meet those goals and the expectations that the board has set for me. But I really do appreciate, the faith that you've put in me to be in this position as your town administrator, and I do not take that for granted. So thank you.
I'd also throw in a comment that it's sometimes easy to sort of look at yourself in your own little world and deal with your current problems. But if you look around, there are a number of our neighbors who are struggling with the management structure. And just read the newspapers. I mean, there's some crazy things that are happening out there in terms of not necessarily incompetence, but discord and dysfunction, et cetera. And you look at that and you say, wow, I'm really glad that we're not going through that kind of an experience, because it basically degrades your ability to make good decisions and get good value for the resources that the town can spend on things and providing services to the residents. So if you're sort of tied up with the discord there, you don't have the right energy to focus on the things that are really important. So I think we
So
should-
since Sam brought that up, I will just mention one of my favorite stories about Sam. Sam had been on the board, I think you may know where I'm going, but Sam had been on the board a very short time. And, you know, as he, you know, likes to do, we'll go to these regional meetings, we'll go to these things. And he went to an MMA meeting and he came back and you know, and he was like, you know, I was talking with a lot of fellow selectmen at the meeting, you know, and everything, and, you know, we're doing pretty well. He says, some of these people, they've got real problems. You know, I mean, they've got real issues in their community. And I said, you know, sometimes you've got to go outside the community to realize how well we really are doing, you know, and again, you know, the goal is always to make sure, you know, that we're not on the front page of the paper above the fold.
That's right.
You know, so I think
You don't
we
want to
do-
compare yourself to the worst. On the other hand, there are people with
Right.
a lot more trouble than we have.
But I think, you know, I've always said that to, you know, department heads and everything, and that you want to make yourself feel better, go to a meeting of your peers, you know, and, you know, you think you're having a bad day, you're going to feel a lot better walking out of there and that, because some people, the things that they have to deal with and the issues that are driving them crazy, you know.
Yeah.
I have been on both sides of that, so, believe me, I fully understand, you know, it took us 2+ years to get that park done,
Yeah.
right, and everything and that, so I'm, you know, we'll revel a little bit in the finished product.
The other side of that too, Mark, is I think we've got some excellent committees in town, excellent volunteer committees.
Yep.
That make it a lot easier to not only get our arms around issues, but to actually sell issues in a town meeting.
I agree.
And help communicate this process. So it's, you got people that we could never afford to pay their current commercial rates.
Right.
Working hard to support things that are important for the town. So that, to me, is another huge plus that sometimes gets overlooked.
And I think we've got to find a way to try to identify new people to bring them into the board and committee process so that we don't, you know, burn out and keep shuffling around people on multiple committees. We have a lot of that too.
Yep.
You know, and we rely heavily on some of those people. So I think, you know, we need to find new people that we can integrate into our boards and committees and start to mentor them a little bit to, you know, to be effective members.
You're suggesting I should resign from some of the committees I'm on?
No, I just think, you know, it's like that in every community, though. You've got
Yeah,
a
sure.
dozen,
Yeah.
15 people that kind of,
Yeah.
you know, have multiple board and committee assignments, and when they're done, it leaves bigger gaps because of
Right.
all the things they're doing, so.
And particularly, training is important there. You got new people come in. It takes a while to
Right.
get up to speed on most of this stuff. So, important. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we're now coming up into the last year of Mark's current contract, and under that contract, it provides that the town administrator is eligible to, heading into FY '25, town administrator is eligible to receive an increase based on the annual SAP increase and board approval, and the annual SAP increase for next year is 4.5%. So I think based on positive consensus valuation and the successful completion of the goals that were set forth in the last goal-setting meeting at this same time last year, that I support the SAP increase of 4.5%. Kathy?
I do too, but for a different reason. And I've said this before. When you don't give someone a raise that's at least equal to inflation, you basically cut their pay, right? So last year, Social Security effective 1/1/24 went up 3.2%, so call it 3.5. So I'd say 3.5. If it's 4.5, is just to keep his purchasing power equal. So in my mind, he got a 1% real raise. And for someone who got, you know, almost 4s on each of these, and did get 4s if you exclude the SAMs, I think that's actually small. So I am more than happy to support the 4.5%.
All right, Sam?
I agree.
Okay. Marguerite?
I agree.
Okay. So I move that town administrator's salary for fiscal year 2025 reflect the annual SAP increase of 4.5%
Second?
above fiscal year 2024.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. So,
Go out and buy that new car now.
all right. Okay, there's one item left on the agenda before we head into an executive session. That's our annual reorganization of the board. You know, I know that when I first became a selectman, we were then selectmen before we became select board members. That was the last year. John Butler said to me, you know, he thinks it is a good kind of tradition that the select board has had to rotate the chair position with, you know, some regularity, because it means that in the public's mind, people, you know, associate it, think of it as a board instead of one particular person. If you follow into the pattern where one person serves as the chair, you know, year after year after year, there can be a lot of benefits to that, but there can be some, you know, downsides. So I think it's a good tradition. So with that said, I very much enjoyed being the chair over the last year. It's a lot of work. But I think we should be selecting a new person for chair for FY '25. So I'll open the floor to.
I've got a comment about that. I understand what John is saying, and I think that perception is, you know, useful to consider. On the other hand, my bottom line is effectiveness. And I think that continuity is an important factor in terms of being able to keep momentum going for a lot of things that we've got here. So I guess my proposal is, I think that I would support Kathy for chair and Andrew for vice chair going forward, to go back to last year's. And it seems to me that is best use of available resources here going forward for next year. Anybody else?
I guess I'd like to hear from Kathy.
She didn't say no yet.
So let me just confirm what Andrew said. He does a lot of work. But I actually, you know, people ask me all the time, do you enjoy, you know, select board? And I say, well, I don't enjoy like going to a good movie, but I really do enjoy this. I like working with each one of you. You know, you're all good people. I know how hard every single person on this board works. So actually, the year I was chair, I did enjoy it. It was a lot of work. I kind of got thrown into it unexpectedly, but I'm looking to my right. No, I have done it once now, so I think I can do a better job the second time around. How about that?
And I think, you know, over the last year, you've not really been a vice chair, you've been more like a co-chair.
Well, I expect you to be the same this year, just so you know, Andrew. You're not good.
Andrew, are you willing to do that?
Yes.
Good.
All right.
I'm happy.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the other three of us have dodged a bullet, so.
Good.
Well, not forever. Just so you know, Al, not forever.
So I will move that we elect Kathy as chair for the next year and Andrew as vice chair for the next year.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
Great.
So,
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
so do you mind if I make this motion, or
Where's
you
that-
want to?
where's that
No,
ga-
Okay,
absolutely.
gavel?
You keep
So
going. This is your meeting.
I move that the board enter into executive session per Mass General Law. Well, maybe I guess we have public comment before we. Is there one? Okay, so seeing as there's no
None in
public
the
comment,
audience,
I move that the board enter into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, and not returning to open session for the following items. 1, to discuss contract negotiations for the town administrator. Exemption 2, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental effect on the town's position. And 2, to review and approve April 23, 2024, and May 13, 2024 executive session minutes.
Second.
Okay, we need to take a roll call vote. Dennington, aye?
Cook, aye.
Stivers, aye.
All right. So we will close the meeting and go into executive session.